everybody. Good evening. Just going to say hello. Another show we're going to do. Hopefully, I mean, it is a fucking controversial subject, so I'm not even going to try to sugarcoat it. Fuck that. It's a controversial discussion, but we're going to try to keep it civil, keep it logical, keep it conversational, like I said. But the other thing I want to do before we get started, I am doing like a fundraiser for a radio station that I work for, which is Mix 93 FM. It's like a dance music radio station. So I have like a show on Mondays called Electro Live, and I play like modern and classic electro music. And what we're doing is we're just trying to raise awareness of the station. We want to keep it up and running and going. It's free from subscription fees. It's free from commercials. There's a lot of rewards for people who support the channel. Like we have a lot of different artists. We even have a lot of classic artists in our community. We have some of the biggest DJs on the planet that DJ on this show, like Tony Morales, DJ Spin, you name it. We have a lot of talent on our show, and yours truly, of course, Dubshine. But anyways, I just want to raise awareness. In the links, I have a description of where you can go if you want to donate to it. We don't really believe in punishing our listeners with like obligations, and this kind of allows us to be completely independent to choose, the musical programming and the talent that we believe in. So Mix 93 is not a for-profit platform, and our talent really, they volunteer their time and effort because we love dance music and we love to commit to bringing good music to the world. That's what we're about. And if you are an artist or a DJ, please note that your support doesn't go unnoticed. If you want to be a DJ or get promotion for your techno, dance, or electro music, hit me up, man. I'm at dubshinemusic@gmail.com. This station does report to Billboard, so if you are playing original music, that stuff does get monitored. It is a monitored station. It's not just another internet radio station. So please check us out. If you can give something, whatever it is, I would greatly appreciate it. But anyways, enough of that. I'm going to go ahead and bring on everybody. How you doing, Miss Sophia, the beautiful Miss Sophia over there? How's it going?
You always catch me when I put my cigarette in my mouth. How y'all doing?
That's all you right there, baby.
I'm doing good. We got Leah in the house.
Yeah, the beautiful Leah Kelso. We've done shows before. We've done debates. She's actually threw her hat into the debate ring at one point before. How you doing tonight, Leah?
I'm pretty good. Yep, pretty good.
What you drinking?
Coffee, hot chocolate, water, all the good stuff.
Wow. See, I'm drinking Jesus coffee.
Yeah,
hey, I got my Jesus coffee.
Yeah, she got her high quality Jesus coffee though.
Yep, imported from Germany. Yeah, it is. It's from Aldi's.
See, my coffee's Vietnamese, so we all got exotic coffee here, I guess.
Oh,
no,
okay.
not Scott.
I got Nestle's Jesus juice.
Ooh, premium.
Mm-hmm. See, I go high class, guys. I don't fuck with that shit you fuck with. But anyways, also got some burning bush for later. Anyways, yeah, but we're gonna get right into it. So we're talking about the abortion topic. Nothing brings people together like the abortion topic, right? Like,
it's real family friendly.
Yeah, it's real family. It's really good to bring up at Thanksgiving dinners and shit like that.
Yeah.
I do.
I bet you do too.
At work. Yeah, I used to drive my boss crazy, who was she was a commander in chief of our little operation, and yeah, she was pretty sensitive to stuff like that. So I'd always make sure I brought it up. It's important that people understand that they're wrong about things. No, I'm just kidding. Mm-hmm. Anyways, we have some videos that we're going to go over. We're going to kind of go back in time and we're going to kind of visit Margaret Sanger, who established Planned Parenthood. Now, Sophia has a certain outlook about the abortion topic that really links directly to that, right? Do you mind explaining your position on that?
Sorry, you were cutting out now.
Yeah, a little lag there. I was just asking, what is your position about? We'll just talk about everybody's position before we even get started. Sophia, I'll start with you. What is your position about the abortion debate? Like, what is your main thought about the whole thing?
My main thought is that it needs to be regulated, and that's pretty much it. And that's based on facts, and that's the angle that I'm going to come from. I'm not going to approach it from like a philosophical standpoint. It's going to be more based on how it's detrimental, especially to the Black community. So that's where I'm going to be coming from.
Okay. And how about you, Leah? What do you think about abortion?
I feel that abortion is a major keystone for democracy. Sorry, that's the wrong word. I mean, it's kind of the right word, but I meant freedom.
Body autonomy, maybe something like that.
Autonomy is a word, but it's not what I'm looking for. I guess. Everything America kind of sort of stands for, and many conservatives would like the book at me for saying that. But, we're as Americans, like, we're so, serious about our rights and our Constitution and our liberties and our freedom and our right to autonomy and our things that just, like, can't be taken away from us, certain freedoms that we have to have, guns, the freedom to pursue happiness, right to vote. All these things are considered, like, essential, like, so obvious to us. We don't bat an eye at it. We don't doubt it for a second. But all of that ideology seems to disappear when it comes to the subject of bodily autonomy for women. Because, the history we have, women haven't always had the power to make our own choices. Men have had the power a lot in history. So that's the angle we're coming from. And that's why this is even a debate right now. I don't want to be one of the people who say this cliche thing, but I honestly, truly believe this wouldn't be a debate if men could get pregnant. No offense. But I truly do feel that it is, have the right to choose when or when not to be pregnant is an essential liberty. And to take it away is to say that women will never truly be free or equal to men. Because yes, there are ways to prevent pregnancy, but ultimately, at the we're at technologically with things like birth control and things like even God forbid rape and things like that. But even birth control, even the most people take measures to the utmost they can, still at that risk of getting pregnant. There is no absolute guarantee because we're not creatures that can control, like, when we get pregnant when we're having sex. We can't be like, like, just clench a muscle and not get pregnant. It's not how it works. As much as that would be great for everybody. So ultimately, like I said, I think it is an essential liberty for women if we are to truly have the same freedom as other humans of different genders of men. And that's something that's important for us to have. And I think that, like, a lot of men turn their backs to that because some people have an ideology, religious or not, that women have to have a different place and sometimes a lesser place, less freedom than men in the world. They're all like, it seems like sometimes Republican parties, they're all about their liberties, everything they hold close to their American heart. But, when it comes to women, it's like it goes out the door. So sorry if that was really long. It's
good that you explained it. It gets the point through. For me, I thought about it, like, since we discussed we were going to actually have the show. And abortion is one of those things that is it depends on how we're talking about it. Like if we're talking philosophically and logically, I would say, and it depends on your premise. Like if you make the statement, like you said, like, you know, freedom, the reason we value freedom is because we value human life, right? So
I would have to disagree.
well, I mean, for a lot of people feel that way. They feel like, you know, we make a blanket statement that human life in itself trumps everything else. Just life in itself trumps everything else. That's the value. Some people feel that it's the quality of life that trumps everything else. So if you're going to have,
you're about to come out of her seat, Scott.
I know, and that's what I'm saying. Just let me get it out, and I'll let you respond. I'm just explaining how other people feel.
No,
right?
I'm listening. Yes.
So other people feel like human life isn't what trumps. It's the quality of life. So if you have a fetus that you know is going to suffer immeasurably because you're poor or because you're, you know, not in a situation to take care of the child, or let's say the child is going to be born into a deformity or is the product of rape or something like that, and it's going to cause problems between the mother and the child because they don't want to be reminded of the rapist, whatever the case. You know, there's a lot of arguments for why people have abortions. They'll say that is what trumps life in itself. Like life doesn't mean shit. Basically, if life only means shit if it's a quality life. And so it depends on where you're coming from. But even that stuff can be sort of examined deeper, because a lot of people can say, well, who are we to choose whether this, you know, human being is going to not want to live in that situation. Like it's very sort of arbitrary to say, you know, I think my fetus, my baby, he's going to become a person, you know, at some point, and he's not going to like living in the situation that I brought him in. And so I should just kill him, because if I go ahead and kill the fetus now, he'll never experience the suffering that I think is going to happen for that person. But is that necessarily true? I don't know.
Indeed, is that really true? Because there's a lot of things you said there that are very, you make a choice to see them that way. So you say kill it, you know, and yes, cells in the body are alive always. When I, you know, pull out, like when I scratch my arm, killing my skin cells. When I, like, you know, my DNA is in my hair, it's in my nails. Those things are, you know, growing and like alive. Well, nails aren't alive, but you get the point, you know, that there's a distinction to be made between life and the life that we value, because it's not life clearly in human civilization and society that makes something valuable. We kill millions of animals every day to feed ourselves. We kill plants just by walking through the grass to get to our cars or the sidewalk. We kill bugs just because they're there in our rooms. You know, we kill each other even, you know, for war. But so obviously, and it's funny that, again, pro-lifers, they like to talk about, oh, you want to consider, you know, this we find on Mars to be life, but you won't even admit that you know, an embryo is like, well, no, bacteria is life, yes, but that's like saying that me scratching my arm is murder when you compare an embryo to life on Mars. So that's a ridiculous thing to complain about. Not that you guys did. I always hear that, and I thought I'd say it.
Yeah, sure. It's definitely part of it that brings up. That's why I said some people value life, period, as trumping everything. Like they don't make the distinction between human life. Like me, I'll just say it personally. Like if I was to, let's say, I was to build an AI robot and it was going to run into a burning building. Let's say there were live babies on the right-hand side, and then there was like a bunch of embryos in a bottle on the left-hand side. And the only thing the AI robot could do is save one, either the baby or the embryo. Which one would you choose for that robot to save?
Right. And I've heard that argument, and I think most
people would say, yeah, they would say that.
Yeah.
Now, the difference is that that's kind of an extreme situation, but it is a situation, and it sort of applies in a lot of situations that people face. And in those cases, I would say get the baby over the fetus. But the way I look at it, depending on how we're coming at it, the difference between like a lump of bacteria or when you scratch your skin and you lose cells is the fetus, though, is a human being that's in the process of a stage. It's an individual from yourself. You're hosting that fetus. So it's going to develop into its own person, right? It's its own stage of humanity, right? And so when we say that one stage of being a human is not as valuable as another stage of human, then we're just being arbitrary. We're doing philosophy at that point. We're not really doing science. Science just says a fetus is a human life, and it's going to be a person. It's going to be born if everything comes out, right? That's science. That's all science says. It doesn't say anything about we should value it over a grown person or anything like that. We're just doing philosophy when we say one stage doesn't matter like another one. What do you think, Sophia? What's your thought?
Yeah, I would agree. Now, personally, I don't think abortion is ethical unless it has to be, like, if it's really necessary, like if it kills the mother or if the fetus isn't viable or something like that. But generally speaking, I don't want to put my own personal opinion in it. So I will agree that the difference between a cell on your skin and an embryo is that your cell would never be viable on its own or anything like that. You know what I'm saying? So there is a difference, scientifically speaking. You know, that's what I would say about that. But my whole thing is that I think abortion should be definitely regulated, and it shouldn't be treated like it is being treated. I mean, when it comes to the Black community, and it's mainly targeted towards the Black community, which is factual. That's a fact. That's not right-wing rhetoric. 52% of pregnancy end in abortion in the Black community. And on a daily basis, we kill about 1,800 babies. And since 1973, it's been like 20 billion. So that's not, at that point, that's not healthcare. You know, that's more like ethnic cleansing. So that's my standpoint on it.
Okay. And that kind of leads into the video, but did you want to respond, Leah, to anything to that?
Yeah, no, to me, that's an entirely different topic than the actual right of abortion itself. It's one thing to say abortion is or is not wrong, and then it's another to say that it's being used and pushed on a certain community. To me, that's like that's very valid, and I'm sure that I believe. I mean, statistically, yeah, I mean, it's viable stuff. I don't think it should be pushed on any one group of people. I think that everyone should have access to it should they want it, and it shouldn't be pushed on anyone, nor should it be taken away from anyone as a right. I feel that it is something that simply should be available like any other kind of medical assistance procedure. So that's how I feel about it. Like I said, I think it's very valid that that's a real thing that's happening. I just think it is a separate idea from like whether or not abortion should be available, because obviously, like, women everywhere of every race and every location probably generally could benefit from having the access to the choice, and if they don't use it, because it's, to me, like I said, I see it as a liberty, and right of bodily autonomy that everyone should have. Males.
Well, that's awesome. That's something that I think we all have in common. Then I think that we're all on board with that. We want to maximize freedom for everybody, right? It's just, I guess, the question is, do we want to include the unborn?
Right. I can agree with her stance to a certain extent, even though personally, I think because I'm a mystic and I believe in karma. So I think aborting your babies is just bad. But aside from that, I also believe in letting people make their own choices. That's between them and their God or their belief or whatever they believe. You know, that's not for me to dictate to somebody else. So I will agree with that part. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. Cool. Well, let's jump into
See this video.
let's go see what the video is all about. Let me go ahead and get this started here.
The government already funnels hundreds of millions of dollars to Planned Parenthood every year. So it should come as no surprise when it funnels your money to celebrate its founder.
Okay.
The Smithsonian National Portrait Gallery.
It's echoing like really bad.
I can hear it, but it is echoing on mine though.
Okay, maybe I just need to turn my speakers down. Hold on. You're probably hearing it from
like
mic. So
I had
all right, let's give it a shot.
Okay, sorry.
Gallery recently opened a new federally funded exhibit that, according to the museum's curator, celebrates women who have challenged and changed America over the past century. Included in the list is notorious liberal feminist Margaret Sanger. The National Portrait Gallery website provides a brief description of Sanger, describing a concerned crusader who fought with the courage of a wounded tiger for the promotion of birth control. What the Smithsonian exhibit fails to mention, however, is that Margaret Sanger founded the largest abortion chain in the country, now known as Planned Parenthood. But the exhibit also fails to explain the racist ideology behind Sanger's promotion of birth control. Many people don't really know what eugenics is. Eugenics is defined as belief in the possibility of improving the qualities of the human species by discouraging reproduction by persons having genetic defects or presumed to have inheritable undesirable traits. Essentially, eugenics is the creation of a master race by controlling who has children and who doesn't. An article appearing in the January 31st, 1922 edition of the New York Times bore the headline, "Mrs. Sanger says Superman is the aim of birth control." If creating a race of supermen is the goal, who did Sanger believe had genetic defects or undesirable traits that stood in the way? In his book, Birth Control, Facts and Responsibilities, Adolf Meyer quoted an essay Sanger wrote in 1925, entitled "The Need of Birth Control in America."
Birth control is not merely an individual problem. It is not merely a national question. It concerns the whole wide world, the ultimate destiny of the human race. In his last book, Mr. H.G. Wells speaks of the meaningless, aimless lives which cram this world of ours. Hordes of people who are born, who live, yet who have done absolutely nothing to advance the race one iota. Their lives are hopeless repetitions. All that they have said has been said before. All that they have done has been done better before. Such human weeds clog up the path, drain out the energies and the resources of this little earth. We must clear the way for a better world. We must cultivate our garden.
In 1922, Sanger wrote a book entitled The Pivot of Civilization. In it is a chapter called The Cruelty of Charity, where she blasts programs that provide medical and nursing facilities to slum mothers as insidiously injurious. In the same book, Sanger called for the cessation of charity, for the segregation of morons, misfits, and the maladjusted, and for the sterilization of genetically inferior races. She also argued that organized attempts to help the poor was the surest sign that our civilization has bred, is breeding, and is perpetuating defectives, delinquents, and dependents. The Birth Control Review was Sanger's official publication for the American Birth Control League, and in 1932 she outlined her plan for peace.
The main objectives of the Population Congress would be to apply a stern and rigid policy of sterilization and segregation to that grade of population whose progeny is already tainted, to give certain dysgenic groups in our population their choice of segregation or sterilization, and to apportion farmlands and homesteads for these segregated persons, where they would be taught to work under competent instructors for the period of their entire lives.
Sanger's admiration for the eugenics programs of Nazi Germany were well known at the time. In 1933, the Birth Control Review published Eugenic Sterilization, an Urgent Need by Ernst Rudin, who was Hitler's director of genetic sterilization and the founder of the Nazi Society for Racial Hygiene. In her praise for the eugenics programs in Germany, Sanger called for the implementation of such programs in the United States, specifically targeting African Americans. The following editorial was published in the 1932 issue of the Birth Control Review.
The Negro problem is one of the most complicated and important confronting America. Whatever the ultimate answer may be, such an attitude brings to light the function of birth control as a necessary agency in its solution. The present submerged condition of the Negro is due in large part to the high fertility of the race under disastrously adverse circumstances. Thus, the question arises, to what extent birth control has had a eugenic effect upon the Negro race?
If any question should remain about Sanger's racist agenda, a 1939 letter she wrote to Dr. Clarence Gamble should remove all doubt.
We should hire 3 or 4 colored ministers, preferably with social service backgrounds and with engaging personalities. The most successful educational approach to the Negro is through a religious appeal. We don't want the word to go out that we want to exterminate the Negro population. And the minister is a man who can straighten out that idea if it ever occurs to any of their more rebellious members.
Can there be any wonder why Planned Parenthood opens its facilities in poor inner-city neighborhoods populated by minorities? Can there be any doubt that Sanger's philosophy of creating a pure race is what fuels Planned Parenthood's support of embryonic stem cell research? Margaret Sanger was a racist. She's responsible for the millions of babies that have been ethnically cleansed from our country and should not be celebrated by the taxpayer-funded Smithsonian. Please visit the website and contact the Smithsonian demanding that materials on Sanger be removed from.
All right. So,
Wow.
can I
That sounds
give my
horrific.
thought real
Like,
quick? I want to go around and get everybody's thoughts about that video, but I just wanted to make one little note to this whole thing, right? Like, there's a difference between the outcome and the intention, right? Like, whatever, like, I just grant, like, she was a racist. She wanted to wipe out Black people. Let's say that was true, right? There is a logical fallacy that says that because it's called a genetic fallacy. It's where, because the person who starts something doesn't mean necessarily that the thing being practiced is necessarily of the same intention, right? Because of the genetic beginning. Like, say, like suppose, for example, we found out Jesus Christ was a racist and all of this kind of stuff. Does that mean that all the Christians are racist too? No. Okay, so I'm not trying to say that based on this video, I think that everyone who has an abortion or promotes abortion is necessarily racist. But here's where I see the difference. The outcome worked. You know, we look at the rates of abortion, it's really huge in the Black communities. And if someone says Black Lives Matter, it seems to me that that's kind of a contradiction to say Black Lives Matter, yet you promote millions and millions of Black babies to be aborted every year. That just seems like a contradiction on its face. What do you say, Sophia? Unmute. Need to unmute.
Muted.
my bad. See, these niggas around here, is being all loud, and I gotta have my door open. Excuse my language. But anyway, I hope y'all can hear me good.
You
and
can't say
there's
that.
Not that much background. But anyway, yeah, I can, and I did. Anyway, so here's my problem. So this lady is the founder of Planned Parenthood, and she's a eugenicist. And my problems with eugenics is that can easily get out of control. And then who gets to decide what's, what life is valuable and what life isn't, like we said earlier. So she is actually the founder of what's now known as Planned Parenthood. And I know that Leah said it's kind of a separate issue, and in a way it is. But the reality is Planned Parenthoods on every corner in inner cities, in the hood. And even today, it's geared and targets Black people. So me personally, I just, I can't get with it, because it's like a form of ethnic cleansing. It's genocide. And aside from us killing each other in Chicago with, gang wars and everything else, on top of that, we're killing our babies every day. I mean, it's like we're erasing ourselves, so I have to keep going back to that standpoint. But now, if you want to do it for yourself, you know what I'm saying, because of some reason, it needs to be a really good reason. But right now, if you look at the numbers, abortion is being used like a contraceptive in itself, you know what I'm saying? And we have so many other ways to prevent it. So my thing is, where is the accountability for, you say autonomy over your own body, but yet you have no control over your own body. And that's where the conundrum comes in, or not the conundrum, but the, it just doesn't make sense to me. If you can't control whether you have a child or not, with all these ways of protecting yourself and having safe sex and everything else, I mean, then I don't know what to tell you. Now, I understand if you get raped or something, but other than that, you should be having responsible sex as an adult, and that's one of my angles as well.
Before I jump over to Leah, I just want to say hello, Jack Chilcote. He's joined the stream, and glad to see you. We know each other from Fight on the Fence. We kind of all know each other from Fight on the Fence. Seems like
he's also my cousin.
all this great stuff that we're doing. At any rate, go ahead, Leah, please. What are your thoughts?
Thank goodness. Okay. I was bursting with emotion. So I definitely hear that, and I understand that is something that is real and was real, and is still real. I would say to the remark about abortion clinics being often placed in cities, I would argue that while that may have been the possible motive before, when ideas like what that woman on that video had were at play, and now I think it's because most people live in cities, so they're going to be located where most people are. Just like you're going to see more restaurants, more stores, more things that people need in cities than you are out in the country and rural areas. So that's my thought on that. There could be other reasons. That's just what makes sense to me. One thing, though, that I want to I feel the need to express here is it's kind of almost framed like this woman has created the idea of birth control and abortion, and that's not real. It was not born out of racism or anything like that. Birth control and abortion itself have both been around much longer than even this country or anything like this. For thousands of years. I think even the Egyptians had, ways, like things they ate, different kinds of herbs, things like that caused abortions. People have always tried to find ways to control pregnancy and, let it, it's always been a human desire, a female desire. Outside of the borders of race and politics, it is just bodily autonomy as far as history goes. That may have been a development in, the negative earlier aspect of American history, and that's unfortunate that it has to be associated with something so grotesque and, awful as racism. But that is not I don't believe that's the driving force of why people want abortion to be legal. Many, like, while yes, millions of black people get abortions every year, millions of white people, women do as well. And it's, for me, I don't see it like anything like that. Obviously, the way I see it is, I want the choice.
Well,
Myself.
I'm just going by the numbers, not to cut you off, just to add that real quick. I'm just going by the numbers because black people, abort at a much higher rate than anybody else in America. So I'm really just talking about America. And that's like at 4 or 5 times the rate. And so, most successful white women, not to, point them out, but most successful white women, they practice safe sex and they don't have that many abortions, So if it's not geared towards the black community in America, then why are the numbers so damn high?
That's what I was going to say, is that I think something I wanted to add was something I'm observing between you guys. See, the facts, I'll just be honest and put it out here like this. For most people, not you guys, but for most people, facts on anything really don't matter. They're kind of irrelevant because everybody can take whatever facts they want to cherry pick to support their position. So the entire set of facts that we have, for most people, don't matter about any kind of topic at all. What really matters is how we feel about certain things. Like Sophia's position is rooted in how she feels about seeing black people dying all the time in abortion, and especially in this thing. Leah, I think from what I'm getting from you, what you really feel strong about is just freedom, just a body autonomy, the rights of a woman to, if she wants to get rid of her fetus for whatever reason, that's her right. It has a man should not have anything to fucking say about it, one way or the other. That's kind of what I'm getting from Leah. Is that who are other humans to tell me what I can do with my body, right? It's
well, the whole thing about the man perspective as well, Leah, because I know me and you been there before about the men. I think it's kind of unfair to say a man has no say so whatsoever. I understand you would be the one to carry the fetus and all that, but at the same time, it takes 2 to tangle, and it's just hard for me to say, okay, a man ain't got no say so whatsoever, like he wasn't part of it at all. And I'm like, that's not fair either. So that's why I say the best solution to this whole thing is safe sex, man. And I know that's not always possible, but hell, we got to be responsible. I don't know. I think that's unfair.
Again, we have Jack here too. Jack, is there anything you want to contribute at this point after watching the video and hearing the discussion?
Well, actually, yes. Let me preface by saying I didn't see the whole video. I came into that like right in the last 5 minutes, and it was really choppy for me. But piecing it together through context, I remember learning about that eugenics woman in college, and I've heard the story behind that. I don't remember her name quite, but you said something just a moment ago that I thought was interesting. You said the facts are irrelevant, and it's largely about how we feel.
For a lot of people.
Yes, and I agree with that to an extent, but I disagree as far as I don't think the numbers are entirely irrelevant. I think, if we go about this matter guided purely by what we feel, then any conclusion we reach is going to be entirely subjective because feelings are subjective.
Mm-hmm.
And as far as the numbers, as far as the numbers go, it's been probably 2-3 years since I looked it up, but I doubt they've changed much. I did actually look this up for a debate a while ago. And as far as rape and incest goes for abortion reasons, rape accounts for about 0.5% of all the abortions done. Incest accounts for about 3%. So when you add those together, we have 96.5% of abortions being done for reasons of, the mother's claiming she's not ready or they don't have money or what have you. And in my view, I don't feel that's necessarily a justified position. I think in cases of rape and incest, yes, the woman should be able to have an abortion 100%. That's without question. But in the other,
okay, go right ahead. I'm sorry, Jack.
This is my finishing thought right here. So I just think we have to define what a life is and the value of a life, because I mean, I know people make the argument, oh, it's not a human yet, it's a fetus, it's an embryo, whatever. But Bill Burr said it best, a comedian. He actually said, if I put a cake in the oven, building it from scratch, and I put a cake in the oven, and you come along and pull that cake out and throw it all over the floor, you can say, well, it wasn't a cake yet. And that can be your excuse. But the fact is, if you would have left it alone for 45, 50 minutes, it would have become a cake. You know what I mean? So I just think the process, no one can deny that if the process of pregnancy is left unimpeded, it will result in a human life. And I don't think we should try to skirt around that. I think we should deal with that if we're going to be having this discussion.
I think we should deal with it too. I definitely agree with that. And that actually goes along with the way I feel about abortion and how I justify and explain myself to others. But there is, and everyone likes to talk about science on the right. I've noticed they love to talk about biology and the fact that it's human DNA and it will become a human being. But the very words that they use in that sentence, it will be, indicates that it is not what it is. There is an objective distinction. You want to talk about objective reality outside of everybody's feelings. If you look at an embryo and you put it next to a baby, like kind of was alluding to earlier when he made the comparison of saving 1,000 frozen embryos versus baby or what have you. There is an objective difference between what a baby is and what a small amount of cells are. That is not the same thing. And we're going to sit here and pretend like you're the same. It's the same thing. You're the same thing if you kill a baby versus if you kill that. That's not the same action. That's not the same crime. That's not the same thing.
Here's the point that I was going to make about the feeling aspect of it. Let me put it to you this way. The best way to argue about the debate, the abortion debate, if people on the right really want to be effective in their abortion debate, just show pictures of an aborted fetus. That's what's going to make people change their mind. That's what triggers them to feel a certain kind of way about that fetus. Because right now it's a concept. It's like a very ambiguous idea that we imagine, like, oh, it's just a little cell. We don't even have a real picture of what it is. But if you were to actually show, like if abortion protesters were to throw pictures of aborted fetuses in people's face, I swear to God, it might not convince a lot of people, but it would convince a lot more than it really is that are on
I disagree because if you actually compare what the embryonic state of a human embryo looks like compared to any other animal, it's kind of undistinguishable. There's been literally so many memes and jokes about that actually, because people put a dog embryo up next to a human one and they have the same. It's indistinguishable. It's almost like you really can't tell.
I'm not saying it's going to convince everybody, okay? I'm not saying that, but I've seen people change their position. I swear, I've seen people change their position when they saw videos on what happens. Because, and my only point is not to say that makes it wrong or that makes it right. That's not what I'm saying.
It gets people emotional.
What I'm saying is that it goes back to your point, Leah. It's like how you feel about the unborn human life.
Well, that was your point. You said that the feelings mattered, and that is obviously because that, like you said, it does get people emotional when they see things like that. They feel a connection when they get a visual image, even if it has nothing to do with like what's actually it's not
religion.
Random.
Let's not forget religion. A lot of people feel strongly about their religious convictions,
and that is a primary thing that I'm actually going to accept. If you believe souls are there from the beginning, that's not something I can argue with you about. Because at the end of the day, I can only argue with things that can be like empirically kind of agreed upon by everybody. If you believe there's a soul from the very moment of conception, then hey, I guess abortion is murder at that point. But it's really, I think it's more.
They don't have an abortion.
Life is not so black and white.
then
Life's
don't have
not
an
so
abortion.
bad.
If you're religious and that's the reason you're against abortion, then don't have an abortion. But don't force everybody to abide by your religious.
Exactly, because you know what? Separation of church and state. You know,
right. But this is kind of what I'm getting at, is that we have, if we're going to really have a conversation about this stuff, let's figure out what we can agree on and go from there. Like because see, what I hear from both sides is people argue the premises and then contradict themselves down the line somewhere. Like, just admit human life doesn't matter to me. Just say that. Just say, look, human life doesn't matter at any stage.
No, that's a hot take.
Or it matters at a particular stage more than it happens. It's arbitrary. Like, just admit you're arbitrary, and then you can kind of build a conversation from honesty and genuineness. But don't say like, oh, it's not life. I believe that Black lives matter, and then say, but what about the aborted fetus? Well, they're not lives. But science says they are a form of life, human life.
Well, if you want to get to that point, I think.
I'm just saying. That's all.
I definitely have a lot to add there. The same hypocrisy does exist on the flip side of that coin, because conservatives preach about the joy of children and how important and beautiful they are and how wonderful they are to be alive. But then as soon as they are alive, they hate people who need help with their kids. They hate anyone that takes anything, because they're actually really there and alive and breathing and needing help. Suddenly it's an inconvenience and disgusting and look down on people who actually have kids.
That's not strictly a conservative.
Yeah.
It's very much a conservative thing because conservatives are anti-socialism, anti-handout, anti-anything from the government. So yes, it really truly is.
That has nothing to do with taking care of children, Leah. I mean, where's the evidence that Democrats help these orphan kids anymore than conservatives?
What I mean is when women. So let me just make a timeline for you. The reasons you stated you think are not reasonable for women to have abortions, like finances, having a man in the picture, a second parent to assist with the kid financially, emotionally, and otherwise. Those are reasons sometimes people don't have the kids, right? So say that someone does what you guys see as the right thing. They have the kid, okay? But, it's one mom and one job and needs help because maybe she has a lot of kids, whatever the case may be. So she gets government assistance. Suddenly, that's the demonized by conservatives. That getting that help once they are alive, like you wanted them to be, quote unquote.
Let me say something though. See, conservatism is a spectrum, and I agree with you on that.
I'm still not sure where this position comes from because, conservatives, like I said, they're not opposed to orphan kids.
They're opposed to government assistance, food stamps, welfare checks, everything. Yes, they are.
Let me ask you a question though. What if conservatives did step up to the plate and say, if you don't have an abortion, we will go half and half with you on that? What would you say?
I'd say they'd be less hypocritical.
But but would it change your mind about abortion?
It wouldn't change my mind, but it would make them
then
hypocritical.
What is the point?
What is the point of making any sense? It makes no sense.
Then it's kind of a separate issue, right? Is what I'm getting at. Like, if it doesn't really matter in the abortion, whether it's right or wrong.
So to clarify, the reason I'm against abortion, I'm not against abortion, is not because of that. All right, I believe in the right to abortion because it's a liberty. So regardless of why you take away my liberty and what's offered to me, you're still taking it away. It's just less bad, and you're not destroying my life as much. Okay, so if I'm a single mom and I have like 5 kids or something, and I have nobody helping me with anything, and I'm not getting spit on by the government and talked down to by people for getting food stamps or welfare or like SSI, whatever it's called that people get. If I'm not being spit on and looked down and being treated like trash, yeah, that's a little better, but it's still not as it should be. Okay, it's like there's a spectrum. Like, it's better. It's less of a hypocrite. You're less evil, cruel, cold-hearted, selfish, whatever.
Right. Let's say conservatives were absolutely zero if let's say, to your knowledge, that conservatives had zero contradictions and they were perfectly unhypocritical about everything down the line. Would that change your mind about abortion or not?
No. because that's
Okay,
not what it's about.
can we table that and say that has nothing to really do with the topic? Because we
No,
kind of
she
The
said-
reason I
she's
brought that
basic-
up was because the reason I
Go
brought that
ahead,
up was
Sophia. I'm
because you
sorry.
said that
She's
people
basically
who believe
saying
in
that-
abortion are hypocritical. I was telling you that you got that the
Yeah.
sorry, not you guys, but the
Yeah.
right wing just as hypocritical as what you are saying about the pro-choicers. That's
Right.
all. That's
Now,
all.
that's what I understood too, and I kind of agree with her on that because, like I always say, conservatism is a spectrum, and since I am a single mom and I do go through this, I do experience this from people on the far right who tell me shit like, "Well, you should have kept your legs closed," and "Oh well, whatever," you know. And it's not like we set out to be pregnant and alone. You know what I mean?
I can't hear Sophia at all. It's
Like
weird.
shit changes afterwards
hear.
magically. So, can y'all hear me?
I can hear you.
Am I
I
breaking
don't know
up?
if they can.
Can y'all
yeah,
hear
can you hear all of us? Can you hear the rest
Yeah,
of
I
us?
can hear. I can hear y'all, but
I don't
can
think Jack
y'all?
can hear any of us.
I can hear
But
you.
Can, Jack,
can
I
hear
think
you.
Jack. I think
No,
Jack is,
no, I
is
hear-
having
I
connectivity
hear
issues.
you too.
shit.
Jack's screen isn't moving at all, so I'm pretty sure he's having some
He,
issues.
he froze.
He done froze. He done froze.
Right, but anyway, she was just pointing out that the hypocrisy exists on both sides, but she wasn't really saying that to back up her
Yeah,
stance.
it's not my reasoning. That's just a response to what you said about the pro-choicers being hypocrites for saying
Oh,
that
yeah,
we
yeah,
don't
yeah, yeah.
care about life at all
Right.
stages.
So
Well, you
I
guys don't really
believe-
care about life, you know.
I got you.
I'll say
Like,
technically.
obviously, there's a lot of hypocrisy on both sides. That's why I'm not a Republican. I'm not a Democrat, because those guys are parties that have party lines and party taglines and agendas.
Right. I'm a
So-
libertarian, just for the record.
Yeah, I'm
not a-
libertarian as well. I think we're all libertarian.
Really?
And
I mean, I can be a little bit more, you
the
know,
libertarian
on the-
side, that's what surprises me. You know, libertarians have a principle of non-aggression. So how do you square that?
I think it's funny when you say non-aggression. They are more of a, I guess the best phrase to describe libertarians is a free fall. But more than anything, they value everybody can do what they want individually, and that is what appeals to me. I guess I'm not like a traditional libertarian, but no one really fits exactly into the mold of a party, class, or name. Anyway, I certainly don't. You know,
Well, just to let the and by the way, if you guys are enjoying the content, please like and subscribe to the channel. We usually have really lively debates every week, and this is just one of them. But I did want to, just for the audience, to let them know what the principle of non-aggression was. In libertarianism, the non-aggression principle, or NAP, is kind of like, it's called like the non-aggression axiom, if you will. It's a concept in which aggression defined as initiating or threatening any forceful interference, like violating or breaching conduct against either an individual, their property, or you know, in this case, a fetus, a certain level of development for a human being. They would say goes against principles. Now, it's philosophy. We're doing philosophy.
yes.
It's just a philosophical
And to
position.
me, I'll tell you exactly how. Yeah, I'll tell you exactly how I respond to that. So my body is the possession that's being violated when you take away my right to control my health and my life, because pregnancy is a very serious thing. I'm a person. Okay, like I think a lot of the time when people talk about the abortion topic and they're pro-life, they definitely just exclude women from humanhood. And they raise embryos and
But isn't that a
into
situational
humanhood.
thing that no one can help? I mean, only women can give birth. I mean, I know
What do
that a
you-
lot of
what do you
liberals don't
mean?
believe that.
Yeah, I mean, it's a one thing. Absolutely. I don't see what
I
your
mean,
point.
it's like if men could give birth, many conservatives would feel the same way, that they should be more
Absolutely, I
responsible.
personally
I guess
believe absolutely would.
And I don't think I really kind of explained my personal position on the whole thing. I kind of feel
I
like
think you kind of alluded to it a little bit.
kind of alluded, but my thing is that there's no, like, I'm a Jedi. Okay, I'm a Jedi. I don't go along with the dark side. The dark side deals in absolutes. So I don't believe that abortion is necessarily absolutely wrong all the time.
Right.
Okay. Just like guns, owning guns, I believe is you're right. But I'm not absolute about it. I don't think we should own a tank. Okay. I believe that there's regulations. There's always room for us to discuss things and kind of carve out different things. And I can change my mind about a lot of things too. So when it comes to abortion, I just feel like if we're talking logically and you're going to say, and we're going to go with science, and we're also going to say that life is fundamental and that that's the basis of the Constitution and the right to liberty, the right to happiness. You got to be alive to have all that, right? So if you're going to argue from that standpoint, be consistent. But
yes,
if you're going to be a person that says, well, life really doesn't matter, it's kind of arbitrary. It depends on what kind of life. If you're rich, great, life is important. If you're poor, fuck life, kill yourself. You can always do that. Some people, if they would just admit that, then the abortion debate wouldn't have so much sting to it. Then it would be like, well, I can't really argue with that because this is not based on science. This is subjective. All this shit is about values. It's about what we value. Values are subjective.
I think you greatly glaze over something because you're making an assumption that people who are pro-choice believe that they're killing something, like a person.
No, I'm not. Well, yeah, they are. I mean, they are killing a fetus.
The core of this question, this problem that I'm seeing here is you believe, and most pro-lifers do, and that is really the core difference between pro-choice and pro-life, is you believe truly that a baby is just as much a person as you or I when it's not born.
No, of course not. A fetus is a potential life.
But you say that the way you speak of it in past tense is as if it's you don't care about life, just kill people. The way you can say it.
Can I say something?
It's a potential person, put that way. Go ahead.
Can y'all hear me? Another thing I want to add though is it'd be one thing if people would abort really early on, and they say the first trimester, but I would say it has to be earlier, even earlier than that, because an embryo is basically, not fully formed, obviously, but I think after like 6 weeks or 7-8 weeks, an embryo already has a heartbeat, little hands, and things like that, and they can already feel pain. And unfortunately, a lot of abortions take place too late. You know what I'm saying? According to what I think is horrific. Because I did, watch the videos, and they used to do like little classes where they teach you what actually happens. And they used to do that when you're getting ready to get an abortion. They would show you the process and what actually happens to the fetus and the stage of the fetus, compare it next to a coin, the size of it. So go ahead. I was just saying that I just think the best word I could come up with is unethical. Okay, because I can't say it's morally wrong because I don't really believe in morals. I'm more like a cause and effect type of person. And since I'm a mystic, I do think that there's repercussions to any action that we take. But that's again up to the individual, and that's their karma to deal with. But at the same time,
morals are subjective because values are subjective.
But at the same time, I do think that it's unethical, and that's the best word I can use for that. Because obviously, when we're talking about the sperm hits the womb and it's just like a little bitty cell. Obviously, it's not a human being yet. We all understand that, and I myself have taken the pill after. So if that's the case, I'm a murderer too. So I wouldn't go that far with it. But
and some people do.
Anything past like when the fetus is already formed, I think that's very unethical, and I just would be too afraid to do it because I do believe in the immutable laws of nature, and I think that's going to come back on me some way. That's just me.
I guess I just wanted to read some of the comments we have in the chat room, so we don't leave them out either. So I'll kind of go up. Selena Cortez says he supports his right to be scum. I don't know who that's directed to or whatever, but if it's me,
What?
then, okay.
What?
Damn.
It's a very logical, reasoned out statement.
I do support that 120%. The other thing too, Quick Six Production says,
hey, I remember him. Hey.
Now
he says, by definition, they are not a person. He also says that the non-aggression principle would only work if you changed what it fundamentally meant to be a human biologically. And that's kind of true, but science, I mean, if you're going to appeal to science says that a fetus is a form of human life at an early stage. So if you're going to go by science, that's what it is. I mean,
human life and being a human being. What is the distinction?
Now, whether we should value a fetus as a human life is a philosophical question. Again, subjective values. That's my take on that. But anyways, Jack, did you want to add something to that?
Well, again, I'm coming in at the end of the conversation. I caught, just the tail end of what you guys were saying. But, for the most part, I don't disagree with your position. I believe subjective emotion does come into it, and it can be a very powerful tool of persuasion, especially like what you were saying when you go and you show a picture of the fetus or a video of the fetus to the would-be mother. I agree that changes minds all the time. That's why the evangelicals stand outside abortion clinics and do that. So,
see, I'm a pantheist. As you know, Jack, I'm a pantheist. So
I didn't know that. I thought you were an athist.
Yeah, well,
I didn't know that either. I thought you
the
were
labels are synonymous sometimes, because I'm not the classical gods or the Abrahamic. So to them, I am an atheist. I might as well be, but I'm kind of a pantheist and a naturalistic pantheist. So I say that subjective is the only thing that matters. Subjectivism, I take the opposite view. Like objective counts as far as facts and kind of adding into your formula for how you're going to design a thought. But the only thing that really matters to me is my subjective experience. That's all life is about. It's about how I feel about things. It's about my values, my feelings, and all of that. And with temperament, it's a struggle. You can't derive truth from feelings. You can't derive oughts and nots from feelings. But you can add up your facts in order to culminate into, and your feelings are indicated by, like informed by how you were raised, what culture you were raised in, what your genetic predispositions are, a host of things that you may not even be conscious of that go into your belief systems and subjective experience of reality. So as a pantheist, I include all things, but I really include subjectivity as kind of a main driver. We're kind of mainly driven by our inner experience. That's really what's important to most people.
If I can really take a steer of the conversation, one thing I was really hoping to get to in this topic, and we kind of have gone in the direction throughout the talk here, but we haven't really got into the center of it yet, it's like I said, I do believe the primary difference between pro-lifers and pro-choicers, and it's the concept, and it's the belief of what, at what point is it murder versus at what point are you killing something but it is not murder. And like we talked about the distinction between life and the life value. So we animals, we kill cells all the time, bacteria.
I'll kill it now in a second.
Yeah, when we're when we're sick, we don't hesitate to take antibiotics, etc. So clearly life is not what we value by itself, right? There is something very special about human life that we hold on a pedestal above all other kinds of life. And if I dive into that in my perspective, and then everyone can else, I would love to hear what they have to say. But this is where I stand as, as someone who is purely pro-choice. I will make it clear, though, you'll see why I say this now later. I'm not really for late-term abortion for many reasons, but namely because there comes a certain point where it is literally a baby sitting inside of you that is already alive and can exist outside of you, right? So I am for, first trimester abortion, and beyond that, I'm not a doctor, so I do believe there's a certain point, that a certain line to be drawn, as Sophia was kind of alluding to earlier, where there's something thinking inside of you, and that to me is, I think, what that special thing about human beings is. The thing we value is being sentient, is having a mind and an awareness, a sense of self and feeling. And that does not begin when a heartbeat, right? A heartbeat is just a throbbing, pulsating force, but it is not, alive and aware and sentient. So the brain takes a bit more time to develop than that. But I'm not a doctor, so I'm not going to get into the exact point at which that occurs. I will say, there's also grayness to this as well. Like you talk about subjectivity, I agree with that to a certain extent. We're in a time of technological medical limitation, where we don't have certainty in precautionary measures, even though we have a good chance of being able to control pregnancy, stop pregnancy. We don't have certainty there yet, so there is kind of gray sort of allowance, and then there are circumstantial things. But that being said, the thing that I believe that makes life so valuable is the fact that we are sentient beings. So, when people become very, badly injured in their brain, like old people, and they go to comas, it is considered medically ethical to pull the plug on them because they are no longer there. They're not will never be able to think or be aware again. And the reason we do that, there's also, medical euthanasia when people have cancer or really terrible terminal illnesses and they're in a very great amount of pain, a very large amount of time. People in some states are able to medically commit assisted suicide because they don't want to go through the agonized pain of waiting for death. So it is a real thing, that those people are not aware. But I'm saying that, it's not even human life. It's not the concept of having human DNA and having human, blood and everything and life that makes something valuable. Not even that.
Let me do a thought experiment.
Can I say something? Since I am a mom, I just think that I understand your point of view, but at the same time, it sounds so impersonal, Because when a child is growing inside of you, even in the first couple of weeks, I mean, I guess it depends on the mother and how in tune you are. It's like you're already like forming a bond, even if it's maybe just your mind or whatever. I don't know, but it's like there's already this connectedness to your fetus, and just knowing that it's growing inside of you, it's not as impersonal as you describe it. You know what I'm saying? And then a lot of times,
before we go into like the cyclic,
I wanted to do a thought experiment for you guys.
Real quick before we do that, I just finished it so I can make sure that everyone understands, because I know I've told Sophia this argument before. That's why she had, but I just want to make sure that the viewers understand, because they have heard me talk about this before. Just to clarify, what I'm getting at is I believe that sentient existence is the thing that we value, and that's what makes the difference between murder and killing, or a skin cell in your arm or something like that. I believe that's what I believe and I feel, based on societal evidence and everything like that. Like I said, we unplug brain dead people. So human life is not, just to clarify, human life is not the thing that makes it murder, right? Okay. Human DNA is not the thing that makes it murder, but
that's fine.
Sentient life is.
Let me just grant you that. Let me just grant you that, right? Just for principle of charity, let me just grant you that. Let me do a thought experiment based on what you just told me. If, in this thought experiment, you can tell the future. You're a psychic. You can tell the future. If this fetus you can tell the future that when this fetus was born, it was going to bring value to the world, like maybe invent some great thing or be loved by millions of people or do some really great things to save humanity or just any measure of success that this potential fetus was going to have. Would you choose to abort that if the mother wanted the fetus to be aborted?
Okay, so why would I choose? Why do I?
Well, I'm
what
just
do you mean?
asking. I'm trying to gauge where you're at.
So
I'm
if I
just
was a
saying.
mother and I wanted to abort a child, but I also knew that the child would be like Gandhi or something.
Yeah.
Is that what you're saying? Okay.
Yeah.
So if you know that, then see, I don't know why this isn't a question. It's the individual's choice, right? So
No.
if like everybody should have the choice. It doesn't matter if it's freaking Jesus Christ. I don't care.
Okay.
Everyone
That's what I wanted. Great. That's what I wanted to get at. That's the baseline. So we already understand where you're at. Is
Okay.
that the value of the potential life isn't at issue. It isn't at stake.
Yeah, because it's
basically
potential
just
life. It's not
the right
there
of the
yet.
person. It's just the right of the mother hosting the child, right? To be.
That's correct. That's what I
Okay.
feel.
Okay,
And
could I
also,
take
Angie-
that logic?
What is your take, Jack?
Go ahead.
Yeah, can y'all, first of all, can y'all hear me? Because I got a different mic.
Yes.
I can hear you.
You hear me?
can hear
Okay.
you.
All right. Secondly, okay, Leah, let's run with that logic. So that's also another popular argument I've heard about pro abortions is well, it's the right of the mother, and that child is basically a parasite in in the mother's womb. But how far is that logic going to go? What about when the child's born? Does the mother have the right to kill the child
No.
after it's out of the womb?
Nope.
But if
Does
you
not.
think about it, it's still a parasite. It's still living off of you. It can't
I
live
never
without
said it was
you.
a parasite, Jack. I'm
Well,
not arguing
I'm not
that.
talking
You're
about you.
going
I'm not
off what
talking
other
about.
people have said to you.
I specifically said this was arguments presented for pro-abortion people that I've had in the past. I'm just trying to gauge if your logic goes in that same direction
Yeah,
or
no,
what.
I can't argue with that because I don't believe that. I don't believe. I mean, okay, yes, if an embryo a baby inside a mother technically has parasitic qualities in the sense that it's medically speaking, it uses a host to survive. It drains energy and nutrients from the host. Do I feel that way personally about a baby? No. That is that like technically true? Yes. Can you consider it the same kind of situation after a baby is born? No. I'm not gonna no. Like, and I said at the beginning of this, to preface it, I'm not really for late term abortion because I believe
get that.
that is an independent person at that.
And I'm glad you mentioned
it
that because that implies that even you place value on life, right?
So
Like you
it's
have an
life,
intrinsic value
I
of
place
life in
value
your
on
mind.
sentient life. I'm just going to use that phrasing in this conversation because I'd like to highlight the difference between life and sentient human life.
Sentience. Let me pick up on sentience. If let's say a person who was about 30 years old became a vegetable or no longer sentient, and they never expressed whether they wanted to live or die, you don't know whether they're going to recover. You don't know if in the future they're going to recover. But normally they should, but nothing's guaranteed. Would you opt for unplugging that person from life support?
That is the choice of the family and the people who are responsible for that person. That is a choice. It's always a choice.
But
That's
I'm
the key
asking
to
you.
not
I'm
miss
asking
the
you. That's why I'm just asking you.
Me
what
personally. So just to clarify the situation, the scenario you're presenting me, this person is like 30. They're in a coma. They're someone close to me. They are probably going to wake up. Is that what you're saying? Yeah,
I'm trying to make the analogy equal.
Can I say something about that? Can I say something about that?
Go ahead.
Please do.
Can I say something?
Sure.
Hello?
Can you hear us?
Can y'all hear me?
I hear you.
Okay.
You're glitching, but I can hear you.
So to me, there's a difference. Like, let's say you get into a car wreck, you're in a coma, and you've been in a coma for 3 years, and you just ain't gonna wake up, and then the family decides they're gonna pull the plug. As painful as it may be, but I mean, you're alive, but you're not living or anything like that. So I can kind of understand that, and I think that's different though, because everything to keep this person alive, first of all. And then once everything failed and they tried what they can, then they made the choice, because they may not want the person to continue to suffer if they may be suffering, I don't know, or whatever the reason is, but they tried everything to try to keep this person alive. So I couldn't use that as a comparison to, okay, I had sex, I didn't mean to get pregnant, so I'm just gonna abort. I mean, it has to be more to it. Like I said, I don't see
analogy, Sophia.
There is more to it.
Every single
I don't see things in black and white and would say that abortion is always wrong. But I would say there need to be more valid reasons for abortion.
Well, yeah, that's kind of what I'm getting at.
Regulated
like,
to a certain extent.
With the
Because
analogy,
at this point, we're just aborting left and right.
See, I don't believe there needs to be any more of a valid reason than to not to want to have a child. Just it's my body. That's how I feel. You know, I hope that one day if I have a child, they will have that right as well. This is something I believe people should have.
The reason I say it's not that. The reason I'm not like I'm saying that it's not that simple is because it can turn unethical really quickly, and we have seen this over and over and over. So that's why I'm saying it ain't that easy to say, oh, we should just have the right.
See, and I see what you're getting at, because you're referencing people who use it as a form of birth control. Am I right? Like people who do it left and right every day easily without the slightest effort to avoid it. Am I correct?
Well, there's a lot of things that play into it. You know, you got doctors making money off of it and exploiting certain people. You know, I mean, there's a lot of corruption that comes with it if it's just that easily accessible. And that's with everything.
Corruption is inevitable regardless of the scenario or outcome or circumstance. But I will say, in regards to just people whimsically getting abortion, I believe abortion should be used as the last resort and avoided because simply it is unhealthy. It's not healthy to do that. It's a strenuous procedure. It's probably has a negative psychological impact with all the hormones and all the changes in the body.
I'm glad you bringing that up, because that's something that we completely bypassed. That's also a factor, you know. There are studies done of women who have serious psychological side effects afterwards, and they regret that they did it. So I'm glad you brought that up.
I guess
it's a hard thing to go through.
With the analogy,
it actually does.
I was just trying to really. The analogies aren't perfect, right? But there's key aspects in both situations that compare exactly alike. And I was just trying to figure out if there's some sort of contradiction there. Like if, regardless of what age you are, because the other side is that the age doesn't matter. The other side, the age does matter. So regardless, let's say they're 30, let's agree with sentience and adult life and all that. If that person lost their sentience and it was unknown whether they were going to recover, but probably would, this is the same comparable to a fetus. You're probably going to give birth to a healthy baby, right? You probably are. So those situations are exactly the same, at least in that sense, right?
In the sense that they will probably gain sentience.
They'll probably be alive later, maybe in 3 months or 6 months or 9 months, right? In that scenario, is it okay if this person, the person in the coma, just like the fetus, didn't give permission because they can't, they're not sentient, they don't know anything, right? They're brain dead, they're offline. Right. Is it moral or ethical to pull the plug on the person that's in the coma?
So, I said,
if it is, then at least you're consistent. If not, So,
like I said, when people usually have a power of attorney in place, kind of thing, so they end up making the decision themselves before, and if they don't, it goes into the hands of the family, like any kind of medical procedure, and they make the decision based on the factors of if they are likely to survive, etc. So, me personally, if I had a close person to me who's 30 or 84, it doesn't matter to me how old they are. If they were likely going to survive, then I would definitely try to get them to continue living and survive. Why that's different from a fetus and getting abortion is because that's already a person. It's of no cost and consequence to your body and your health and your life. It's not harming me to do that. Also, I don't really consider that an equivalent scenario, because again, I don't feel like that's already been a person. They already have a personality, memories, a life. They're a whole body.
So what would make them equal? What would make the analogies equal?
I don't think anything's going to make them equal. That's the thing. That's what I'm getting at. Either different.
I mean, can you imagine anything? Can you imagine something that would add, like, what is it about the fetus that's different than the adult in the coma?
Well, and that really was the core of what I was trying to steer the conversation to, because being sentient is really the key concept.
Yeah, they're both not sentient. We grant that.
We're not, and the consciousness is in phases too. We go to sleep every night, but the difference is there. Like a real alive, person is like, it's a choice. So you make a medical choice to keep that person alive. They've already been living. They have already had memories and a fully developed body. Okay, so that's a full, person.
Okay, perfect. Okay. Why is the fact that a fetus hasn't lived before makes it different? Why does that difference make it different?
Why? And it's the same thing as, why is a seed different than a plant? Objectively speaking, if you grow a seed into a plant, it will be a plant and it'll have fruit, right? But you can't point at a seed and say it's a fruit, right? They're two different things. They're just two different things.
I'm glad you said. I was just about to add something on that, because
go ready.
I was touching on this.
Jack,
earlier.
I can't hear you.
Can't hear you too well.
I see.
Turn it up.
Hold on.
Who's talking? Okay.
Jack's trying to chime in. His mic wasn't very loud.
He's frozen.
Yeah. Possibly the video was interfering.
That mic's not bad.
Audio. Yeah.
Nah, it's a shitty mic. It's a gaming mic. It's meant for like a PlayStation, not this stuff. But I had to charge my phone again. Anyway, yeah, I wanted to add to the point you were making, Scott, about the difference between a fetus's right to life and then a person who's in a coma. Now, Leah, you've drawn the line. Now you've drawn a parameter of value between a person in a coma and a fetus, because you're saying the person in the coma's lived before. Mm-hmm. So I'm curious then how you would respond to what I was saying earlier about Bill Burr, the comedian. What would you say to the argument of, well, if you put a cake into the oven, and 10 minutes later I come along and I rip that cake out of the oven and throw it all over the floor, and you say, you just ruined my cake. I say, well, it wasn't a cake yet. How do you respond to that? Because I feel like it really it does hammer the point home.
I would say you ruined my cake batter, because that like I said, it's about objective thinking, right? It's about objectively not lying to ourselves and telling ourselves that 2 + 2 is 5, right? Because there and it's not to say that an embryo is not alive and a fetus is not alive, because cells are alive, right? Plants are alive, bacteria is alive. Alive is that kind of word, but there's a difference, there in objectivity of what something is. Okay, a seed isn't a plant. Cake batter isn't a cake. It can be, it possibly will be, but it is not. That is why we say it has the potential to be, because it is not at the current state. It is going to be. There is distance between the point of becoming a baby and being an embryo, between the cake batter and the cake, between the seed and the plant. They have two different
But there's no way around. There's no way around the fact that if the process is left unimpeded, you are going to have a cake or a baby or a pizza or whatever you want to say. I mean, there's no way around that. If the process is not interfered with,
right?
It's going to result in a baby.
That's not anything I'm arguing against. Of course, generally speaking, assuming everything's healthy, if you leave something, it will become something else. But it is objectively not that thing. The whole point of becoming something is because you are not yet that something. Is that not true? Can you guys not admit that?
I
mean,
mean,
is
yeah,
it
of
true
course,
that
I admit that. Like, if you're, to me,
Okay,
my whole
okay.
thing is if you're destroying
Can
a
I say
cake or
something?
that's
the
Chantel
batter in the
talking?
oven, you're destroying batter. But see, here again, the value. We value what it's going to be.
I was just
Some
gonna
people
say
don't
though.
value what it's going to be. They just
I was
value
just
that
gonna
it's not, that
say.
it's cake batter. You know, it's just, you're stuck in we're all stuck in our little value system. That's the problem.
Yeah, I agree. A value. The thing is, I think it's a little bit
I'm
different.
just asking
See,
though. Like, I'm
objectively
trying to ask you a
speaking.
question.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. You can go.
Yeah, Sophia had been trying to talk for like 10 minutes.
Yeah. And I can't
Can
hear.
y'all? I don't know. Can y'all?
I can't hear either.
I don't know if y'all can hear me or what. But I was just saying, like, some could argue that a seed is.
Yep. Wow.
Yeah. Can y'all hear me?
Yeah, we can't hear
Shit.
you.
We can hear you, but your screen is very glitchy.
Maybe go out and come back
No.
Yeah, that's
in.
what
Go
I
out
had to
and
do.
come back in.
Jack's screen is frozen too.
Well,
I can hear you, but
No, you're good now.
I might move. I might move because this is getting ridiculous.
Yeah, crappy
Okay.
connection.
Hold up. I'll be right back. Y'all go. I'll save my point for a couple of minutes from now. I'm gonna move spots.
Well,
here and
maybe now you don't got to move because now I hear you
tell
great.
y'all what I'm-
Like I'm hearing everything
yeah,
you
we
said.
can hear you now that she thought about moving. It's just how the universe works, I guess.
That's how Jesus works, man.
Get out of here. Anyway,
Burning bush.
I was just shut the hell up. I was just
Jack already knows I'm a dick.
I'm just going down.
It's usually in good fun though.
Yeah, it's all in good measure.
See, by the time I get my point in, the computer's gonna start lagging again. So
gotta hurry.
Anyway, like I was saying, one could argue that a seed is just as essential though. Like if there was no food or whatever and you had seeds, it could save your life, and that seed is gonna grow into what you need to sustain your life. So one could argue that seeds are more important than
we have an
plant
entire
itself,
warehouse
because,
of seeds
plants can get
in
destroyed.
Alaska or somewhere, just in case the world comes to an end.
Yeah. So you see what I'm saying? The only thing I'm saying is that it's subjective. One person could argue that the seed has no value, and then another person could show you a point where the seed is even more valuable. You see what I'm saying? So that's why I take the stance of saying that's up to you, because that's something you got to deal with. That's something that
ultimately,
logically, you made that choice. You know, I believe in live and let live. So that's something you got to deal with. So I wouldn't force anybody to do anything. You know what I mean? But that's just, I mean.
But it's okay to give other sides. There's okay to help people think about the alternative view. You know, the world is not a it's not a monolith, like we have different views, different subjective feelings and values, and everyone has a right to point out the logic behind their reasoning.
And I think
and I would say that the pro-choice side has a logical reasoning behind it. Depending on how you argue, there may be a contradiction down the line, but that holds true with anything, right? On both sides of the argument with anything. So at the end of the day, I think it really boils down to what we value. Like, do we value seeds or do we value trees, right?
And to add on to that,
without the seed, there is no tree.
That's why the concept of choice is so important, because we each determine our own values instead of having someone else's enforced onto us. If you value the seed, the beginning of something from the very beginning, it is very important to you, then you're allowed to, and that's freedom, and that's yours to decide. Just as it is someone else's to decide that they don't value that, they don't feel that way, and they don't want it to be that way. Everyone should have that individual freedom. That is the whole core of my feelings, my belief system towards that subject.
Okay. Let me. Can I add something to that then? We'll flip it up. I'll play devil's advocate for a minute because it's been, Leah 1 versus 3 the whole time. So I'll come after both of you guys with this question. Is the abortion debate really solvable then? I mean, can we get to the bottom line and arrive at a final conclusion here? Because Scott, your position is that it's all subjective, and that's all we have to go on is our subjective emotion. And Leah, your position is, purely one of freedom and your own personal preference, and you don't want that to be messed with. I get that. But then if that's your guys' position, then to me, it seems like we can't ever solve this debate. It'll be an ongoing
I
debate.
disagree. I think that we are rapidly approaching a point on the linear timeline where it won't matter. Because
there's solidarity on other moral questions, though. Like there's moral questions on what constitutes murder, or what a host of things, a whole shitload of topics out there. I could just name.
If you think about it, every scenario has a gray area. That's why we have a court of law, because not everything is black and white.
Well, what I was going to say is that it's all subjective, but I think who's going to win is who appeals to emotions the best. That's the guy. Those are the guys that are going to win. Yeah. The people that control the algorithms online, on the internet and stuff like that, they're going to be able to push their agendas and twist people's minds to feel a certain way. That's why you have all these different echo chambers fighting against and trying to encourage each side. They're all saying, look, we think abortion is wrong, right? Right? This is why, right? And they all get in their little bubble and they say that for various reasons. Yep. It happens on the other side too. And who wins is whoever controls the feelings of all the people. They've won us over with capitalism. Most people like capitalism. Most people like the fact of, being able to own your own property or something like that, right? Most people like that in America. But that might change if somebody can change the feelings people have about socialism to make them maybe use different language that they can hack into your mind and logic, then they can kind of send you on a different logic train. And it's like, okay,
that's a whole other. That's a whole other.
I'm just saying, the way this applies, though, what I'm saying is the way this applies to the abortion debate is just to say that it depends on our subjective values at the end of the day. I still haven't heard anything from you, Leah, that says objectively why one should be for pro-choice. I don't see why we ought to. And I don't see why we ought to
completely.
feel
I disagree with that completely.
I'm sorry, say that again.
Yeah, no, I completely disagree with that. I think a lot of I completely disagree with that. I think a lot of the things I've said have objectively been reasonable things that aren't really emotional. They're just facts. Women are people too.
But you don't get moral. You can never derive moral. You can never derive morals from a fact. Never.
Well, I'm not trying to argue someone's religion, right? I said at the very beginning, if you believe that there's a soul inside of an embryo at the very moment of conception, I have no argument for you. Don't get an abortion, okay? But don't come to me with that shit, because I don't share your beliefs, and that is really the fundamental thing. Everybody should have their own choice. If you don't like it, don't do it.
I understand that sentiment. I understand that sentiment. What I'm saying is that it's a very known fact that you can never derive a moral ought from a fact. Like, you never can. Like, who's to say murder's really wrong, right? It depends on how you what your values are. If you value life and you value people's right to live and be happy, just like you want to live and be happy, and you want your loved ones to live and be happy, then you're going to value life and you're going to say no to murder, right?
Yeah, I believe morality is.
You didn't do it because you ought to. You did it because of different reasons. That's my opinion.
I believe that morality is objective, but it is subjectively known to humans. So we're never going to see the crystal clear, perfect right and wrong, but we slowly maneuver our way toward it up the ladder in a subjective fashion. So we attempt, we know it subjectively, but it exists objectively. That is why we can all come to usually as humans, we can all come to a common understanding of general things that are wrong and right, even if we can't agree on the minor detail and the smaller factors.
And I didn't let her in. I'm sorry. But yeah, that I understand exactly what you're saying. You know, you're basing your feelings on facts. I understand that. We're all basing our feelings on a set of facts.
Well, more or less, yeah. We are limited humans. We can only, do so much with our limited knowledge. We all do the best that we can to come to the best conclusions that we can for the best reasons that we have with the most information that we have available to us.
I can agree
and of
with
course,
that.
emotions,
Absolutely.
experiences, and are coming into play too.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with that 100%. We're limited. The way we perceive the world is just that. It's a perception of things, and it's informed by our culture, by our influences, external influences and internal influences. So it doesn't necessarily map on to some objective truth. Now that's where the religious side comes in. I kind of wanted to go into that too, is that there are religious arguments for being against abortion. Like there's religious arguments. I don't know if you considered those, Leah, or do you consider yourself like a Christian or something? Or
I am an agnostic leaning towards theism, actually. I want to make that distinction because people like to, kind of say agnostic and then they're free from any kind of paradigms or, structural stuff. And I'm not one without those things. I don't subscribe to any religion. I feel that most religions have some value and some good and negative impact on the world as is. I believe I can respect someone who has an opinion and a faith and lives their lives in a certain way, feels that others should, maybe even, but doesn't enforce, because I think the whole concept of good and evil is actually thrown out the window when you force it. So if you hold a gun to someone's head, it doesn't matter what they do because they're the one controlling them, right? So even in Christianity, free will is kind of a big thing. You have to have the option to do evil. Otherwise, it's not truly good. It's not really a good choice you're making. It's someone else making the choice for you. That is kind
your
of
choices are informed by things you're not even always aware of. So in a sense, you're determined, but in another sense, you have a feeling of free will. And, I think that's the whole point about subjectivity, that makes subjectivity such a central role in life, because, that's really what we're doing. We're just experiencing things. But I don't want to get off topic. Sophia just got back on, and I wanted her to get her thoughts out. When she left, she was saying something. Go ahead and say what it was.
My apologies. I ended up moving because I think it was me that was constantly lagging. Can y'all hear me better now?
Yep. I can hear you fine.
Okay. Well, I think that was all I had to say though. Like I can't look at the topic black and white, like I said. I think we just have to be careful that it doesn't turn unethical, and that can happen really fast. I don't know if you guys ever heard of this dude named Gosnell. He was a doctor, and he exploited people, and he did all these abortions. Y'all should check it out, man. He had when the FBI raided him, he had like late-term infants in his freezer and laying around, and he was just running this abortion clinic out of his home. And like I said, there's so much corruption that comes with it if it's not regulated. That's all I'm saying. It should definitely be regulated.
And that's why it should be. I mean,
in
my opinion, that's why it should be legal, because if you make it illegal, people are going to throw out all the limitations entirely. They're not going to care if it's 9 months or something crazy like that, because they're breaking the law anyway. In my opinion, you're doing.
I think it definitely should be legal. I'm just saying that it should be at least regulated. It shouldn't be that easy. It's just like I'll take the trans stuff in this trans community. Like it's too easy to get affirmed. You know what I'm saying? You can go in there and say, "Hey, I got this for you," and answer a few questions, and next thing you know, that's it. That's all it takes.
I agree.
And so I think there just needs to be more regulations, because now we're seeing the outcome and it's not good. We see the side effects of the treatment and this and that. You know what I'm saying? That could have been prevented had we taken more, a little bit more drastic measures to prevent it. You know what I'm saying? So
I agree. I think we could do a whole another meeting about that, but we just spend an hour agreeing with each other probably. So
yeah,
you know,
so
could
I
be
mean,
a
no,
fun-
we're on the same page, but that's what we do on this show. We're not trying to just oppose people.
We
You know,
challenge each other.
we're trying to come to some type of understanding so we can, because let's face it, our country is very divided, and all these topics are extremely dividing us even more. So I like to see myself as a bridge builder to where we can come to some kind of common ground, because at the end of the day, we all live in America, and we don't want our country to fall apart, right? I mean, I ain't got nowhere else to go. Do you? You know, so
And look, the beautiful thing about the way I frame it as a subjective value thing opens up a space for us to understand each other. Because if we're talking about how we feel, I can listen to the way you feel. I don't necessarily have to accept the way you feel and feel the way you feel, but I can at least now understand where you're coming from. And let's face it, we're never going to have a conversation about stuff if we don't understand the other side. If all we're doing is throwing rocks at each other.
yeah, that's
Yeah,
true. But
a lot of the
then, you
time-
know, I get upset at people though that use like false bullshit to try to win me over. Like there are a lot of leftists who will say, "Oh yeah, but Black women are the main ones that die from childbirth," and that's a bunch of bullshit, because you know they
Well, now we're talking facts.
They
See, that's a
twist-
different, now we're in a different category. So
They
like we were
twist-
talking about earlier, like with the facts, we can, no one gets to have their own facts. Like
no,
we
what
can,
I'm saying,
we can,
what I'm
yeah.
saying is that it shouldn't be about trying to win somebody over at all costs. And
Oh,
that's
yeah,
what
right.
That's what
Of
I feel
course.
is wrong with the right and the left. I think it should be more like what we're doing here. We're trying to see each other's points, and we're trying to come to some type of middle ground. That's what I'm saying. So
We're
I
all
do
saying,
get
I'm
upset.
saying the same thing
I
you
do
are.
get
I'm saying the
I
same
do
thing.
get upset. I do get upset, and you will see me in that like energy where I'm going for somebody, and it seems like I'm trying to destroy them. But it's not that I'm trying to destroy them. I'm trying to destroy their stupid ass lies and manipulation to get me to agree when you know that shit is bullshit. I live in the hood. I see Black women popping out babies left and right, and they're not dying. All right, that's not
that is one thing that really disgusts me about the tactics of the left, and the right does it too, but the left is really kind of gross with it. They are almost insulting to different, like I would be insulted
to your whole
honestly, like
intelligence.
if someone like that, like for example, you know, I don't even actually, I just want to say that I feel as though they coddle, insult people, and act like they're like babies and stupid, like different groups of people that they can't think for themselves. And,
right.
And it's like they're forcing them into a victim box to make them, you know, and it's just, it's not the way, it's not right. You know, I don't
Leah,
believe
can you hear me
that
knocking?
is
Leah,
an honest way to
can you hear-
approach.
Can you hear me knocking, baby?
Topic.
Leah, can you hear me knocking, baby?
He said,
Can you hear me
Leah,
knocking?
Leah.
Let me in, baby. Let me in. We in the same room. We are on the same side. We actually all agree. That's all we're really arguing for, is the same point. Now you've said it. Now you've kind of said it. There just needs to be some responsibility and accountability that needs to be honed in. And it doesn't need to be taught by the government. It needs to be taught by people like you, me, and Sophia, to tell people, look, take more responsibility and accountability for your life.
Well, just to be honest, that's what I'm speaking for.
Having abortion might not be good for you. It might not be good for your psychology.
I don't think. See, a lot of people like to frame abortion as like as a punishment. You know, like sex is the crime and abortion is the punishment. I don't see it that way at all, and I think that's another flaw with the way the right looks at sex and abortion. Abortion is not like a child is not a consequence. A child is not a punishment. It shouldn't be seen as a punishment. That is part of the stigma that makes women hate being parents. It makes people hate single mothers. You know, I don't like the idea of looking at kids like there's some kind of burden, punishment, responsibility, solemn.
And you conservatives out there, I'm talking to you.
See, that's where
conservatives out there. Let me hold on, Sophia. Let me tell these damn conservatives something. If you're so damn worried about babies being aborted because the woman can't afford it, and you say that's no excuse, God damn it, do something about that.
Okay, well,
why don't you build a facility? I'm not saying the government do it. I'm saying private citizens who feel that strong about it, take your money and build you a help center for women that have babies when they can't afford it.
No, that don't work like that, Scott. That don't work like that. It don't work like that. So I have to intercept here.
Okay, why is that?
No, object. I don't know. Anyway, so here's the problem. Okay, like Leah said, a child shouldn't be, it shouldn't feel like a punishment or whatever. But as a mother, you do want to give your children the best life. Okay, so again, and that's not just Black people. A lot of people are practicing this stupid ass ghetto culture and practicing this whole thing where men are not in the homes or fathers are not in the homes. So that's a big problem because it is hard to raise a kid on your own because
I see what you're driving at.
If you are a single parent and you have to be the sole provider like I am, and you also have to be there with your kids, you got to cook for them, you got to wash their clothes, you got to study with them, do homework with them, you got to do all of this and bring the money home, so something's going to get neglected. It's going to be me. I'm going to neglect myself because I'm sacrificing everything for my children, and then I'm going to die young, and then they ain't going to have a mama, or the kids are going to get neglected because I got to throw them in daycare for 24 fucking hours so I can go out there and get the money. It's just bad all around. So
what you're saying, what you're disagreeing with me about.
I'm not disagreeing. I'm just saying that's why I'm a strong advocate for the nuclear family structure. Now, I'm not saying 2 lesbians can't raise a kid or whatever. I'm not saying that, but we need strong foundations for our children. That's it. That's all I'm saying. So we can't say, it would be helpful. It would be helpful to have like funding for single women and all that kind of stuff and helping them repeat. That's helpful. But I'm saying let's tackle the underlying issue.
The problem at its first. Yeah.
At its root.
Yes, that's very true. That goes without saying. That goes without saying. Like that's definitely the main driver. I'm just saying, in the context of the arguments that are made back and forth, being broke is what makes me have abortions. I don't want to bring a baby, and I don't want to make myself more anchored.
Right, but I want to say I'm not like completely disagreeing with you, because on the far right you will hear that type of bullshit where they don't want to help us at all. They'd rather help. They'd rather help some tranny get fucking.
And what I'm saying is, I understand.
So I'm saying that people on the far right don't understand, but if this problem persists, that doesn't make our society better. So that's going to affect us all as a whole. So if you help, like you said, to correct the problem, then it'll make it better for all of us. But at the same time, I'm not saying throw handouts. I'm just saying be mindful, help out.
Here's the other thing.
And there's kind of a give and take with that, because if you make a structural organization, like he's saying, like design specifically for women who otherwise have no financial means or anything, you're kind of almost, I don't want to say you're encouraging, single that mothers in that type of like life, but you're kind of definitely facilitating it. I think a more effective solution is to, if you want to like, make the social economic factor disappear.
I see.
Targeting.
Okay. You might have a better point with that.
Society is not designed to be a single parent.
I wasn't really saying that the right, even the far right, or maybe someone could make the argument, we just don't want the government to make these facilities and stuff because they don't know how to run shit, and it's not moral because some people don't want to support.
It's because the way the government designs it. It's because the way that the government designs it, and I know because I live in it. The way the government designs it, it's a perpetual cycle, and you don't get out of it. Okay, it's the way they make it. It's like you make a little bit too much, you don't qualify for it, but you still don't make enough to take care of your and pay the rent and shit like that. So it's like you get stuck in it. So we need programs that actually teach you new skills or something like that so you can make more money,
Like
or
job
teach you how
training.
Here's a comment we got
teach you
from
how
the
to
audience.
teach you how to become an entrepreneur or some shit, you know, how to start your own business,
Or
so
careers
that
that are designed from home or something like that.
right, so that in the long run you don't need that assistance. But see, the way that the government and these progressives want to regulate this shit is it's going to keep us in these, you know, projects, so to speak.
Quick Sticks Productions has a question. Why the nuclear family specifically? What about polyamorous families?
Hey, I just said, I need to clarify myself. I don't know if I was being choppy or whatever, but I did say, I'm not saying that two of any kind of people can raise a child. I'm saying we need strong
She meant the two-parent
foundation.
structure.
Yeah.
We need strong.
Okay.
What I'm saying.
So having multiple adults. And
Yeah, I would agree.
system.
It doesn't matter if we lived in a culture
what
that
I'm
was
saying
polyamorous. Then
ultimately, I don't even know what polyamorous is, but
it
I'm
means
just saying,
it's like 3 wives or something like that.
oh Lord, yes,
and that's really statistically a not really a successful venture, but generally, I believe like
I was in a cult with a man who had 4 concubines, and I saw that didn't go well. So I'm not for that. That causes too much fucking confusion, if you ask me. But I'm just saying, what I'm saying, I'm mainly saying is that, damn, I can't even talk right. Anyway, what I'm saying is, at the end of the day, we need a strong foundation for our children. If you can make that happen in a polyamorous relationship, fucking go for it. I don't think that's going to happen.
That's not your point.
It's a statistical hurdle. Yeah, I was going to say, you know, I don't have a problem with it per se, but the likelihood of a successful relationship in longevity speaking with polyamorous people and children involved, the chances are, you know, kind of lower. So I think like a 2-adult system is statistically and historically a more functional unit than like a bunch of people doing whatever. I'm not even talking about gender, you know, lesbians, gays, whatever. But I think like
that makes me question people like Six Sticks. Like, what kind of fucking question was that even? Like,
well, he's saying that's not what polyamory is entirely, anyways.
I'm just saying,
doesn't matter.
Why does it always have to go back to some LGBT or some sexual deviant stuff? Like, we were talking about children and strong foundations. You know, that's what I'm saying. Like, what the hell?
I didn't do it. Don't look at me.
Where did that come from? Where in the hell did that come from? You know, that irks me, man. I ain't gonna lie, because at the end of the day, I care about kids. I don't care about your sex life. Just to let you know, if he's still here.
Well, I think you're kind of talking past each other, because I think, Sophia, what you're saying is it doesn't really matter if polyamory did work. Let's just for the sake of a thought experiment, let's say polyamory was healthy for raising kids, just like a 2-parent family was. If that was the case, why would you be against it? Well, you're saying I wouldn't be against it. So that's
no, I wouldn't. But we all know that shit don't work.
Like,
we all know. We all know that shit don't work. We all know that shit don't work.
It really doesn't usually work.
But what's the point of bringing it up? What's the point? Because honestly, that's just diverting from what I was talking about, and I don't even like that.
Well, he's saying it's not sex; it's a relationship setup. That's
I don't care.
Yeah, that's right. That's what I'm saying. You wouldn't care.
That just made me smoke a cigarette. So
you're a health nut.
I was talking about kids and having a strong
foundation. Scott.
What?
Stressing people out. It's like totally irrelevant.
Thank you. It was irrelevant, and y'all have it so bad. I let me guess, you're one of the LGBT people, because y'all got to make y'all and insert yourself in everything for some or another reason. You know, it's like y'all excluded us. Y'all always feel excluded. I don't understand. What's up with that? Is he even here?
He's one of our wonderful audience members, so we respect you, and we definitely want you. If you want to call in, you can call in and we can discuss it. Maybe you want to
comment or something. Am I missing something?
Yeah, let me put the link out and invite people if they want to join the discussion live.
What happened to Jack?
So we can
like
better
he comes in and out.
Jack is like struggling out there with his connection.
He's out there in the boondocks, huh?
Pretty much. He's on like a kind of like a hill. Like, we live in the Appalachian region, so it's
about 1-800-Jesus.
Yeah, pretty much.
What the fuck, Scott?
Oh my gosh, I'm reading your comments and
1-800-Jesus.
Wow.
But guys, I went ahead and pasted the StreamYard link. So if you want to join, please call in. Like quick sticks, if you want, jump on in.
How many people are watching, Scott? How many people are watching? I'm just curious.
We're showing 3, but sometimes that's misleading because sometimes people aren't really have a channel.
We're not that famous yet.
Yeah.
Dang, well, it's okay. They'll watch later.
No, we'll get like a couple hundred views by the end of the week.
I had to come back in my bedroom. I kind of don't like coming in here because like it's my bedroom, but I get the best service here because I'm also kind of in the country, and we have.
All right, Quick Sticks is joining us.
Oh Lord, here he goes.
Who is?
Quick Stick. How you doing? You have a camera? Okay, he's got. Yeah, he was with us before. Remember, Sophia? He was with us.
I know him. Yeah. I know him. I said hi to him earlier.
Hi.
Hi. So maybe explain what you meant by the question. Like, what about polyamorous people and communal upbringings? Like,
I'm saying, yeah, I'm just basically saying, why does it have to be specifically to parents?
Because we hate LGBTQ people.
That's what they think anyway.
It's all about man and woman.
To answer that,
Adam and Eve,
less,
not Adam and Steve.
Less people involved, the more successful the relationship is, statistically speaking. So
well,
when
can I
there's
see?
4, 5, 6,
can I see that study then?
I knew he was gonna do it. I knew he gonna do it. Quick.
I mean, she's probably not prepared to be fair.
Fair enough.
Well, to be fair, Quick Sticks. I said the nuclear family structure, but I also added. That's not to say that to lesbians or whoever. Yeah. I said what matters is a strong foundation. If you can accomplish that in a polyamorous situation, hey, go for it. I personally have seen it not go well. I lived it because my dad was a polygamist. He is a polygamist. And I seen firsthand how that worked. It takes a really
was this some sort of cult?
How she feels about that.
Was this some sort of cult background? Like,
yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I actually had.
I'm not talking about like, polygamous cults. Which a lot of that's based on. It's not
what
just
saying. You gotta be specific what you mean. So she was just saying.
What I mean by polyamorous is it just means more than 2 people in a relationship.
Right, but all I'm saying is I feel like those type of questions irk me because they come out of nowhere. Like we excluded somebody, and it's like we weren't excluding anybody. We were just discussing something.
Okay, it's just when you said the nuclear family, I just assumed
did you hear me add to that anybody, that's not to say that anybody
gay couple.
Right.
I mean, I've heard basically. Well, I'm not sure. I've heard basically lesbians and gay people are part of the nuclear family model now. Anyway, so.
Well, I didn't know that.
Let's go. Hey, Sophia.
I didn't think they were considered.
Let's go around and see what we all feel like. For me, I'll start and then we'll go to Leah and down to Sophia. But I would say for me, I don't care. Like if as long as it's healthy for the child, I don't care. Like, I don't know what the studies are on polyamorous. I never really thought about it. But if it turns out that they are just as capable of raising a healthy child in the world as a gay couple or as a straight couple or whatever, I would have no problem with it at all. And I don't think
I don't have the studies offhand, but most of human history, it was not the nuclear family that was the main setup for raising someone. It was actually a communal upbringing.
Yeah, so I know that in Kenya,
but that's different.
Was not the same thing as raising a family.
A communal upbringing is different. Like we even have this whole old saying, "It takes a village to raise a child." That's not equivalent to having a household and everybody's doing everybody. Like I don't know.
It's not the same thing. Yes, I agree. And so it's my turn, I guess, if we're going in that order. I feel the same way as Scott. I feel it's a matter of function. If it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. So I just, like I said, you want to talk about history with successes and communal upbringings and men being absent, but financially speaking, that the financial support does come from the parents, not from the community. Yeah, sure, you run around the neighborhood and your neighbors maybe watch your kid, and it's a very cute environment. But that's not the same thing as being a parent and their 24/7 responsibility for your child, nurturing your child, giving your child advice. That is not it. You can't act like a community raised your kid. You raised your kid. The community affects their quality and ability.
Not necessarily, because a lot of people's parents probably died of, like what would be preventable causes today now, and
right.
they would have.
And then people typically did remarry after that, or they went to a foster.
No, well, not necessarily. No.
So let me ask you something quick.
Let me ask
you something quick, Sticks. Do you think it's more healthy for a child? Okay, when a child is born, right, and they have a mom and they have a dad, and they form this bond with their mother and all that. Do you think it's more healthy for that child in the beginning stages to have this close bond with their biological parent, or do you think it's more healthy for that child to form a close bond with several people around them in their early stages of life?
Good questions.
I'm just asking.
I think it's possible. Yeah, I think it's entirely possible.
No, I didn't say if it was possible. I didn't ask that. I'm saying, do you think it's more healthy? Like, do you think that's more healthy for the child?
Do you think that's the better option?
Yeah. Do you think that's the better option?
Potentially, yeah.
Why? Explain that.
Well, you've got more hands on deck, I suppose. You have more people to carry the burden of raising a child, so that's one thing.
Okay, that makes sense, but at the same time, as a mother, I'm the one that's breastfeeding my child. Nobody else really can do that. Well, I mean, they technically could if they were producing milk at the same damn time, but let's just say I'm the only one whose titties got milk. And my baby gonna be suckling every 2 hours, and I'm gonna be around my baby the whole damn time. And I don't really want to be separated from my baby at this time. So I don't even really probably want my husband to take my baby at that time. It's just, that's just how it is. You know what I'm saying? As a mother.
Well,
how do you feel about I want to add on as what she said real quick before you respond, because I think kind of what she might be alluding to also is forming attachments and connections is a thing that's learned very early in life, and when that is dispersed among many people, how do you think that might have a negative effect on attachment and relationships, psychologically? Do you think that is an issue?
I mean, yeah, of course it can, but in the same sense, the same issues can you could get different issues from having a smaller pool of people. If you only have two people, you have more chance of them going at each other's throats and fighting.
I don't mean to be referring back to myself because I feel so important, but like somebody accused me of that. But I like to refer to my personal experiences a lot because it taught me a lot of things. And so my dad, like I said, he was a polygamist, and one thing he did, he was a cult leader, and he wanted to be worshipped by everybody in the cult. So one of his tactics was that once the baby was born, the baby was passed around between several people. And then that way, the baby never really formed that close bond that is very essential to build a strong foundation between the mother and the child and the dad and the child. And so the kid was constantly passed around, and he did this to all the children when they were born. And at the end of the day, it was all worship was for him. It was reserved for him, and everybody else had that like that wall between them. The bond wasn't there. So
yeah,
I don't support like a hierarchical.
I'm just saying when we're talking about the effect of several people being around this newborn infant, and this infant moving from these arms to these arms to these arms and gets basically passed around like that, that baby is going to have issues growing up forming bonds. And I know because these babies are now grown adults who have issues out here and can't form bonds. Okay, so I have seen it. and I have seen the effects of it. And that's all I'm saying. So that's why if you could make it work, I would say go for it. But I just don't think that it works that way.
One thing I'd like to add too is I think that in a polyamorous family, you have a very high chance of developing a sexist outlook on the world, because if you see a bunch of women, for example, taking care of the baby and the father is not really involved, you get your notions of parenthood as a man saying, I don't really have to be a parent because my dad wasn't a parent. This is a woman's responsibility. And it kind of causes a distance between, you know, like there's actually a TV show. It's called Sister Wives, and they actually explore the lives of polyamorous families in real time America. Yeah. And I watched it, you know, and they all ended kind of shittily. They didn't stay.
Were they all from religious backgrounds?
No, not all of them. Some of them
Not
were
all.
just doing their own thing. Some of them were Mormons.
Yeah,
But I did notice the commonalities there. The male superiority that was involved. For example, at the end, I remember the one. This was the Mormon one, but the religion, you know, really has nothing to do with it, because at the end of the day, you're one dad, you're one guy. There's like 5 women, and each of them say have 2, 3 kids. You got double-digit amount of kids now. How much attention and love can you really give your child if you've got so many wives and you have so much money that you have to, you know,
This isn't like just talking about like a husband with multiple wives. It could be entirely male. It could be a mix.
Yes. It could be, but there's similar issues that are going to occur there. So it can be the vice versa sexism issue. You could develop the idea that a mother is you know, it can create some issues and any like perspectives. Whatever gender is dominant, or even if there is no presence of the other gender at all, it can make some very psychologically unequivalent perspectives about gender.
You could develop those same attitudes within like a monogamous relationship. So
let me say something too. That the reason that
a lot of the problems you're describing are not exempt from what would be in monogamy anyway. So, but look, here's my only thought. To say that it wouldn't make a difference in how we're raised is to kind of like discount millions of years of evolution and how humans have become to be the way we are psychologically. Like, you can't just discount evolution as it doesn't matter. We have the choice to do it this way. What is
we envision and imagine?
Look, I can only give you like a good example, like, because I'm not formally educated, so I can't give you any data or anything like that. But just for example, when my daughter came out of my stomach and the nurse held her and tried to clean her, she was screaming for me and she wanted to get back to me. She already knew my scent. She already knew my voice. And there's this trust that builds up between you and your child. And so if you pass that child around between different people, you know, that it's going to have a negative effect on that baby, because that baby already knows you. That baby's already attached to its mother. And those first couple of years where you're suckling your child is very, very important. And it does take a big psychological effect on that baby if that's interrupted, I would say. Now, can this happen in a monogamous relationship? Of course. It just depends on what, you know, there are some women who go through postpartum depression and they can't connect to their baby or whatever, you know, if there's something like that going on. And then, that baby might have psychological damage from that too. I'm not saying it can't happen.
Have you ever heard, has anyone ever heard of polyamory monogamy? Has anyone ever heard of serial monogamy?
Serial monogamy.
Yeah, have you ever heard of that?
If it is what it sounds like, I'm assuming it's involving, you know, different people having different partners, but you know,
what it's alluding to is within the ape family, with most, if not all, apes that we know about, pretty much. From what I understand, if I remember it correctly, is that these apes, the way that they behave is that the father will be with the mother to raise the child but then will go off to make other babies and do the same. So they're like monogamous, but then they do it serially. In other words, and they said if you look at the humans, if you look at humans,
Hey, that sounds like a deadbeat dad.
no, yeah, but what it is that if you look at human beings, most human beings don't stay married to one person. In fact, divorce rates are like really
50%.
high. It's a really high rate of divorces, you know, throughout.
They used to not be like
unless
that,
there's
though.
unless there's a religious nation, like if you're like in Saudi Arabia or something like that, it's enforced.
Yeah, there's not really an option.
Right, it's not an option, but the men can. It's debatable whether they go out and cheat anyways, right?
I'm
or
sure
have
they do.
multiple wives or something like that. But the point is that it seems like nature, even if that was true, that humans are serial monogamous, it still shows that a father is very important in the development of that child growing up. Even if later on he moves out and does the same with another, at least for a time, it's very important, if that was true, that the father be in the life of the child and the mother, of course.
And I think it's.
I would argue that a man's presence in a child's life is even more important as the child gets older, because the first couple of years that child's going to be more attached to the mother because of the whole suckling thing and all that. And then you got to understand that that child was in your body for 9 months, so you don't just take it out and throw it away, throw it over there.
Well, then again, we're human beings. We're rational creatures,
so going off the point you were just saying there, like I can grant you maybe it's good for the baby to stay with the mother for a period of time, but you were saying, you introduce it to the dad afterwards. Well, why can't they be introduced to a third partner after that, or a fourth, or
human
whatever?
Human beings
It's unstable. That's the simple answer. It's unstable.
That's what I was trying to say, because that's just too many. You need to allow that strong bond and strong foundation. And how are you going to have that with that many people? I mean, I'm an adult and I can't do that with a whole lot of people.
I'm not saying monogamy works into infinity, but like, where would the cutoff point be?
I think
I'll tell you. That's exactly what I was going to say. You go ahead, Lee. I'll get into it in a minute.
No, you're good. You're good. You haven't used.
Go ahead, Jack.
Oh yeah, okay, all right, yeah. Let me go ahead because my phone keeps dying like every 5 minutes. So let me go ahead with this. I would say think about how hard it is for two people, just let alone two people, to agree on the values of which to raise a child. You know what I mean? Like if you have a mother and a father, they're going to believe different things, and they're going to fight about those different things.
Oh no, Jack frozen again. Well,
hold on. Can y'all hear me?
It was a good thing.
I can hear you.
I can still see him.
Okay. All right. So the point I'm making is now you introduce a third party and a fourth party. That's a whole nother individual with a whole nother way, a whole nother perception, possibly another worldview, another way of looking at life. And that's a whole nother person that you have to come to terms with on how to raise that child. Like, for example, like at the gym I go to, right, there's this gym guy I work out with. He's got a brother who's a conservative Christian, and he's married to a liberal atheist woman. And to me, that boggles my mind. I said, how do you raise kids? How do you agree on what values to raise that kids with? And when you bring in 3 and 4 and 5 people, I just think it's going to be too much chaos. There's going to be too much conflicting beliefs, conflicting worldviews, and just it's a mess. It quickly devolves into a mess. And I think that's also linked to why polyamorous relationships are statistically very hard to pull off.
That sounds more like that's an issue of our relationship not working out and less to do with it in regards to raising a child. I'm talking about somebody's been in a polyamorous relationship for a while.
Shame on you. I'm just kidding.
No, I'm saying they've been in a polyamorous relationship for a while. It's worked out. It's been relatively stable. Why can't that carry over to raising a child?
Well, in theory, it's a nice little idea that things work that way, but that's where the statistics do come in, and it's quite easy to see why with what Jack explained just now. The divorce rate with monogamy is 50%, right? And look at the basic reason why people get divorced.
I don't like marriage, so.
What is it?
I oppose marriage anyway, so.
Well, even marriage, like really marriage, take that out of the fact. The only thing marriage really signifies is a separated relationship. It doesn't really matter if it's marriage or not. Like people who are serious enough to bond themselves together legally. Okay. The people who are less serious probably have even higher rates of separation. So we're just going with the statistics of what we know about separation because that is the only thing we have. We don't have necessarily the same kind of statistics that we do but generally speaking, this is just a segment of data that we have to use for reference about relationships and separation. Okay. So it's 50%, in a free country where people can divorce if they want. There's no religious law, Sharia law, anything like that, forcing people to stay together. And that's with two people, so, and for the reasons that, like Jack discussed, religious, political differences, financial difficulties, stress, personality differences changing over time, cheating, things like that. Cheating alone, I mean, is a certain likelihood with two people, right? The chance that each one will cheat. Now, when you add more people, there's more. Would you not? It's more likely that there will be cheating, right? That's just a fact. That's math right there, And so when you think about that, and you add a third person into the relationship, the cheating's more likely to happen. The argument more likely to happen because there's more people. More bad things are more likely to happen. And so it results that separation is more likely to happen. And that then results that the child has a less quality of experience because the family is not together ultimately and permanently in a longevity kind of way. Another thing I was trying to say earlier, but there's like a lot of conversation going around with what Chantel was kind of discussing is different stages of development, like in psychology. People learn about it. There's a trust phase that we go through when we are babies and kids and everything, and it is the trust that that the caretaker will meet your needs, right? So it's kind of like a Freudian thing. It's where it kind of originated from. He's one of the people to talk about it, but it is still a recognized stage of trust, in development today. And so when you're developing that sense of trust for a person to meet your needs, right? If someone else meets those needs, then now you're not sure who's going to be, meeting your needs. So I would say that there is like a psychological aspect to having a lot of caretakers. There's a lot more people to do the work and the tasks. But on the flip side of that coin, there is less, quality and closeness to be had when the time that you have is divided up more. You have less time with each individual, and there's more people to be around. So there's less closeness and less bonding, just time wise. The amount of time you're spending, there's just less.
I agree. A child needs consistency, and with polyamory, there's too much coming and going. It's an open relationship. You got partners. Maybe some of them are long term, but I imagine, I'll be the first to admit, I'm a simple mountain man. I don't know a lot about polyamorous relationships. There was one group of girls in high school, and that was the last ones I actually physically met. But from what I understand of polyamory, there's just a lot of coming and going. It's by definition an open relationship, and I think a child's development is, a child needs the opposite of that. It needs consistency. It needs, familiarity, and even if you go as far as to say that all the polyamorous partners one has, say they're all good people, but even if they're good people, that mere fact of inconsistency in going to be stability, in my opinion.
Okay.
So.
Another thing, real quick. Earlier we were talking about the tendencies for sexism in polyamorous relationships. I just want to add that I know you pointed out that polyamorous relationships can be with all men or all women, or more women or more men. The fact is, again, statistically, commonly, you can even see that on the TV show, Sister Wives. Like, typically polyamory, it does end up being multiple wives and one husband, and the consequences of that are evident, as I've described. Issues with with the father being present in the lives of the many kids, in comparison to the
Are we talking about a setup of one husband, multiple wives in all these scenarios?
That is one of the most common situations of polyamory.
Yeah, but
because of religious
I would
reasons,
also say a lot of those situations, they're from either a religious or a traditional household. I think that's just a phenomenon that happens, that's just happens to be polyamory.
How many non-religious?
It's not polyamory as a totality.
You can't really call that a phenomena when it's the more common way that polyamory takes place, and it's not just for religious reasons.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna ask.
Polyamory is very much alive and with one man and multiple women, just because that's what some people do. That's what a lot of people do. It tends to happen like that. You can make your speculations as to why that is, but that is the fact that if we're going to talk about what it's like, we're not going to look at the minorities, right? The 3 dudes raising one kid or whatever. That's why would you talk about the tiny outliers when you need to talk about the most common likelihood scenario? It's not the things that matter. You can't just look at this one perfect little picture and ignore the burning other parts of it. You know what I mean? It doesn't really seem efficient.
I'll admit, I didn't know there was such a thing as common polyamory. Is that, you're saying that's how most of them end up?
Polyamory. The most common ways that polyamory typically manifests is with one man and multiple wives, typically.
I mean, I know that's true potentially in Islam, but is that the case
in the United States? Yes.
I think Scott started to ask this too. What about the non-religious polyamorous folks?
That's what I'm saying. Even in non-religious situations like the United States, it is still a predominant formation of polyamory.
Yeah, I mean,
if we were on Facebook,
I would need more studies on it, because the same argument could be there's plenty of these same problems.
But if it showed that what Leah is saying is correct, would that change your position?
I don't polyamory should be illegal in any sense.
No, I'm not saying illegal.
No, I'm not saying that.
That's not the position. The position.
I'm a libertarian.
Yeah.
I'm saying it's not efficient.
It's not efficient, right?
For raising kids.
I think there's so many factors in a relationship to consider. I think there's, social, economic factors. For example, you could have, 2 abusive, junkies who are in a monogamous relationship and not give a shit about their children at all. You could have a polyamory of 5 people, and they're all caring and loving for that child, and they have a tried and tested.
So we're just basing it off the scenarios of the amount of people. So obviously doing drugs and living in a trailer and being a junkie, as you say, is it's better to not. Right. I'd rather be in the whole of the well acclimated polyamorous people than the monogamous junkies, if that's what you mean. But we're not really talking about what if. We're talking about just based on the factor of how many people are involved alone. Based on that factor alone, it is reasonable to assume that statistically, and in my opinion, also just personally, that being in a monogamous family generally is better. Of course, there are other factors at play, and it's not always the case, and there are outliers. But generally speaking, monogamy is probably the better.
I think that's possible. I think that's probably technically right because of the amount of, obviously there's just going to be more studies and information on monogamous relationships because it's the status quo. But I'm saying I'm saying if polyamory became more accepted in society, became a more normal thing,
But
I
see,
think that's the only way you would know if it's healthy or not.
But see, that's the thing, though, man. I don't agree with that because there is a reason why it's not that accepted to begin with, and it's the reasons
We
that
have
we
a whole
pointed out.
a history
So
with Scott.
what
Smith. We have
irks
a
me
whole
about these
history of-
conversations, really, because what really irks me about these conversations, I'm going to be really direct. It's like it's all about you and what you want to do and how you want to practice this. But if you had the best interest of the child in mind, I don't see why you would still continue to push the issue of accepting that the same way we accept
I'm not.
things.
I'm not trying to push anything. I'm just questioning
I'll be right back when I get back.
the validity of it.
Okay, so you're not really saying that polyamorous relationships are ineffective. Or are efficient.
Well, I mean,
don't know.
You just said that. You just said that if it was more widely accepted and all that, then we would be able to tell if it really works. And you really want to take that risk at the expense of children? I mean, we already know that it doesn't work.
This is the same. This is the same argument they made against homosexuality. This is the same argument they made against transgender people.
Well, see, that's just you going into too much. We're talking about having people coming in and out because you're in an open relationship.
No, it's not necessarily an open relationship. You could be in a relationship 2 or 4 or 5 people, and then you can choose to cut off at that. It's not necessarily a revolving door system.
I guess what we're saying is you can say a gay couple can raise a child efficiently. You can say that and still say that polyamorous is very questionable. You can still have that suspicion.
I'm not saying it isn't questionable, but what I'm saying is I don't think it should be thrown out of the window or dismissed.
No, I mean, I wouldn't go as far as to say, look, if the question is, can you be a good, decent person enough to be around a child, then I think to say that's fair. I think also, but for the reasons I've listed, where you have people coming and going all the time and confliction.
Well, that's not necessarily what's going to happen, though. You're just assuming that.
Yeah, but even if
it is a potential factor, and much more so than would be between a monogamous relationship. I mean, there's no disputing that. I think, between two people, there's going to be friction between two people, but the more people you have, the more friction.
Does that have
to even successful relationships? Even couples that do stay together, they still fight. They still have disagreements. They still struggle with how to raise a child and struggle with what the right thing is to do. And I
guess what it comes down
I don't
to
necessarily
is evidence. I guess what Quick Sticks is asking is what evidence do we have to show that polyamory is inherently bad for children? He doesn't see.
Well, let's start with what we know, which Leah has already talked about, and I kind of glossed over. But the success rate, statistically speaking, of polyamorous relationships is low. I'll just say this is lower than that of monogamous relationships. So I think that's a good starting point. There's a lot of instability to be conquered.
I'm not disputing that, but there's a lot of other external factors you have to take into play. Like the system is set up to favor a monogamous relationship.
I think what
Can you elaborate?
What you were saying earlier, I think what he was saying about that earlier is that there are more studies done on monogamous people than there are on polyamorous people because there are more monogamous people than there are polyamorous. At least that's the area we're coming from. But
but we do still have data.
Yeah. To counteract that, even there is less data, we still know the facts about numbers increasing chances of negative things happening. It doesn't really matter, about the data, because at the end of the day, for each person, there's a chance they're going to cheat. And if you add another person, the chances of one of those people in the relationship cheating, the chances that one of them will cheat is higher simply because there are more people. That's just a fact.
That's
And
fact.
just like, that's not just for cheating. That's for arguments. That's for fights. That's for like abuse. That increases the chance of abuse happening simply because there's more people.
I just pulled up online, is polyamorous unhealthy for children? And what I got was an article here from the New York Times talks about the challenges of polyamory. And what this one doctor states is that there's very little research on families consisting of more than 2 romantically involved parents, according to Heath Schlesinger, who is a co-chair of the Consensual Non-Monogamy Task Force. In one study found 1 in 5 adults reported engaging in consensual non-monogamy at some point in their lifetime. This comprised of many kind of relationships like swinging, like open marriages, like polyamory, which involves maintaining multiple emotionally or sexually intimate relationships at once or both. So what she's saying is, I guess there's not a whole lot of study on it right now.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
But would you? I guess the question
I'm saying it's quite inconclusive.
It's inconclusive, right? Let's grant that it's inconclusive. Let's just grant it for the sake of argument. If it's inconclusive, is it something that you should take a chance with when it comes to raising a child?
That's what I said.
That's a good point.
If there's no reason to believe it's going to harm them either way.
But there is
you could find that with any relationship setup.
No, but the fact
that
like
what
she
I'm saying
is
the probability is going to be higher for the negative things because there's
the more people that are involved, the more the chances of those bad things occurring. Yeah, exactly. It's just because there's more people. It doesn't really matter about the specifics. Just the fact that there are more people alone means that there's more likely to be cheating, abuse, fighting, arguing, divorce, separation, negative relationships ending. Reasons relationships end. Yeah, pretty much. Just because there's more people.
That's common sense. But like sometimes we just have to apply common sense, I feel. And that's all it takes to say, yeah, we probably shouldn't take that risk. Because at the end of the day,
I haven't seen the statistics, so I can't comment on it. But
so you don't think? Let me ask you this: you don't think that the probability of specific things would go up if there are more people?
To a certain degree, like a ridiculous degree, like 17 people or whatever, but. Like 3, 4, 5 people.
One more than two.
It's by like a third. So basically, so you're increasing the chances times 1.3.
Well, as I said, I would need to see the study.
Have you been in a polyamorous relationship? Just curious.
No, I've dated somebody who was talking about it, and I don't know how I feel about it personally.
Well, I'm just saying, like, I know a lot about these things because I was the kind of person I like dive into shit, get involved in it, and all that kind of stuff because I want to know. And you know, jealousy and all that is even like you already have things like jealousy in monogamous relationships. And even though people willingly engage in polyamorous relationships or polygamous relationships or anything like that, even though they agree to it, doesn't mean they're not still human. You know, people can't, not everybody can just turn off their emotions when they want to. So there's jealousy is extreme in those type of relationships because it comes up, whether they want to act like it's not a big deal and they can deal with it. It comes up and it gets crazy. Like it gets
someone who's been married twice, I don't believe that, at least for me, marriage really works all that great to begin with, much less if you marry multiple wives. Like, how much more complicated is that shit going to be? Like, if I can't even keep one woman, how the hell am I going to keep 4 or 5 of them motherfuckers?
Everybody thinks,
it just complicates
everybody
things.
Thinks when they start their relationships, when they say their vows, they have every intention in their mind that it's going to be all sunshine and rainbows.
Right.
But obviously it's not, because 50% divorce rate with monogamous people. You know, I'm sure polyamorous people are the same way. You know, they come in thinking that it's going to be open and perfect and communication, but it's not, because like Sophia said.
Yeah. I'm not saying it's
That's
going to
my
be
first name.
perfect. I'm not saying it's going to be perfect.
But we're saying should we take that risk when we already know it's already problematic in a monogamous relationship? Do we want to amplify that at the expense of the child?
Yeah, let me ask you a question. Quick Sticks. Do you know anybody, any couple that has been in any polyamorous group that has been together for 2 years and has had children and raised them fully and completely?
No. But that's because I think because of the way society's set up and the stigmas, we've never really trialed it.
What do you mean we've
in
never
a manner
trialed?
of speaking? Well, it's never been
There's plenty
tried
of people who tried. There's plenty of people who've tried. That's not the issue. The issue is it doesn't work.
But you said earlier, Quick Sticks, that
yeah, but a lot you've got to keep in mind as well. The law is set up to favor a monogamous relationship,
the law
and prior
has no
to
bearing on the success of a relationship.
But you
like
said
that has nothing to do with why people separate.
Let Sophia talk.
Yes, it is.
You said earlier that monogamous relationships wasn't always like the number one thing. That polyamorous relationships were.
Well, not polyamorous, communal.
Because you tried to say the community was raising.
I'm not saying no. I'm. Let me clarify. Let me clarify. Communal upbringing is
but
separate from polyamory.
You said on one hand, monogamous relationships wasn't always the thing. It was polyamorous, and now you're saying, oh, there aren't enough studies on it. Like, which one is it?
Now you're saying that wasn't really polyamorous. Well, you can't use it. You can't have both.
No. I'm not saying that was when I mentioned communal upbringing. I wasn't using that as in reference to polyamory.
So what's the
I was showing that. I was pointing that out as an example.
Okay.
You can't use it as an example if it's not real polyamory, though. It either is or it is not.
Exactly.
If it is not, then there's parents and there's
I wasn't using it as an example of polyamory in the first place.
Well, that's kind of what you did, though. I mean, you are responsible for how you use that example, and you brought it in to kind of rebut me. And so that's what you did.
You did say, like, in the past, that's how things were. You're equating that to the success and the merit potential of polyamorous relationships. But if you're going to equate that, then you have to either.
I'm not equating it to anything.
I mean, Quick Sticks, I would say that my whole thing is, I just can't logically see how polyamory is as efficient as an already deficient marriage. Like, between two people. So it's like, I can't see how that's going to make it better.
Imagine,
that alone is enough for me not to be convinced by your argument.
You are arguing that the laws are against you, right? Imagine in a world where people could be married 3-4 different people. Imagine what the divorce would look like, okay? Imagine splitting up all the assets in the fight and 4 lawyers in a courtroom. Can you imagine how is that going to be any easier for you? How is that going to be easier for you? I'd like to have your vision of what the better world where polyamorous marriage is legal looks like. How is that better? How is that more efficient? How's it going to work?
Well, that would be determined between like the parties in question, just like a monogamous relationship.
Nah. You know that's not
for the most part works. Like, do you think that a monogamous marriage, do you think that realistically works?
I don't know. I said it's inconclusive. I don't know, but I'm saying I'm skeptical of the nuclear family because.
What about do you take into account the statistics?
You're skeptical of the nuclear family.
Yeah,
the world started with like a woman and a man. What do you mean you're skeptical of it?
What do you mean? What do you mean it started with a man and a woman?
Well,
That's
life
what it's-
starts with a man and a
Life
woman.
starts
It's
with a
nothing-
man and a woman. Like, how can you be skeptical of that? Like, seriously.
That's the most implicated nature of it. Like, a man and a woman make a baby. There is no other combination of people that can do that. So if that is not naked
that's
indicators, I don't know what
biology.
is.
That's not a relationship.
There's a reason, but there's a reason why it works that way, right? Can we kind of see that maybe nature's kind of hinting that this is what works because I don't know. You tell me if you can make an inferences from that.
Pardon?
Yeah, can you make an inference from the fact that it takes a man and a woman to even make a baby?
You said that's just biology, right? That's it. That's all. Two people made a baby.
There's no connection between that
That's
and
crazy.
the structure of human relationships and family structures. How's that how I feel?
The bond between two people who want to raise a child
There's no
together.
wrong
and all
answer. It's just like
I'm just genuinely curious.
Not necessarily. No.
Yeah, there's no correlation between relationship and the fact that a man and woman make a baby. Okay. Well,
That's cute.
I mean, that's just
cute.
Again, that's based on how he feels.
No, it's
And
not how. It's not how. It's not how I. It's
That
not
make
how.
me feel like there
It's
is a
not
correlation.
how I feel.
No, I'm asking you. That's what we were asking you. How
we
how
want to
do
know how
you
you personally feel about
that
it.
there's
What
a
are you
correlation?
basing that on? Like, if it's not your feelings, because it ain't facts. I can tell you that.
Right.
Whose feelings are you describing if not your own? I'm
Right.
genuinely asking.
The facts are what they are. I mean, so you can't tell us that that's not a fact, that man and woman make baby and it
Yeah, I'm not saying that, but what I'm saying is what's the correlation between that being
I'm just
successful?
asking you
we're asking you what the correlation is. Like, do you think there is meaning between the fact that a man and a woman make a baby and monogamous relationships between men and women that have existed
Is there any
for
correlation at all,
time?
in your opinion?
Do you feel like that means that that's maybe the way things are kind of meant to be? I'm asking you.
Not necessarily. No. Homosexuality exists in other animals,
Right.
so no.
Yeah, in
We're not
one animal.
And
it's like
But
one
that's
example
not
of
what
one.
we already know. We all agree that there are homosexuals exist.
But it
We're
ain't
not
like
saying that.
everybody is homosexual though. So that's I don't know why y'all.
We're talking about
Okay,
man
this is-
and
Really,
woman.
really,
so-
this isn't even about gender. This is just about monogamy. So even take away the gender aspect, two people come together to make a baby.
Mhm.
Right. Very good.
So we're just really right now the focus is just how two parents versus more than that.
Right.
So two people make the baby, right? So does it not maybe make sense that two people should be raising the baby?
Okay, well, you can apply that logic to should the mother be raising a surrogate, gay couple's child? Like,
Well, if no
Well,
one
at
else
that point, a
is
surrogate mother has agreed to that. That's an agreed upon deal before.
Well, it's the same thing with a polyamorous relationship. All the parties need to consent. It's not just like Doris and Bill invited Brandy in at the last minute.
But just because you can do something, I don't think means you should. And when it comes to a surrogate situation, most of the time, from my understanding, a surrogate mother or father, whatever mother does that because of the actual would-be mother is for whatever reason incapable of having her own child. Otherwise, why would you need the surrogate? So it's like if they want to have a family, that's their only option. But when it comes to, Leah's point of a mother and a father make a baby, that's not their only option. They have the right to raise that child, I believe, and I think that's why monogamous relationships are the status quo.
A lot of the time,
Or at
gay
least a
and
factor.
lesbian couples adopt from foster care. So those are kids who don't have any parents anyway. It's still better than being in a foster care system. So that's just something, because I know you mentioned, how's that, work with when, people who are not but having a child the traditional way have kids. Well, typically, yeah, I mean, even though it's not ideal, adoption is something that's better than leaving, because the kid already doesn't have the option to have the traditional family, right? That's already off the board because they are in foster care or being adopted. So they don't have parents for one reason or another. So having a family, some kind of family, is still better than nothing, but it's not ideal, I guess. And maybe, it's not, it can work, right? Like 10 people raising some children. But the odds are, in my opinion, and kind of statistically speaking, very much against them as far as the successful.
I would say it's inconclusive. I wouldn't say you can draw solid conclusions from it.
So what about the studies that do prove it and do have the data? So do we just disregard it?
I'm saying that those studies are probably from a very small pool of participants.
You discount religious,
and there's not been enough studies to prove anything conclusive. No.
But there should be, if you say it's been around forever and people been doing that before monogamy.
Why do you think that monogamy is let me ask you, why do you think monogamy is the predominant way of life? Why do you think that is?
Me?
No, quick sticks. Because he's saying that, polyamory isn't a thing because society doesn't support it.
I think it has got an attachment to evolution in a sense, because monogamous relationships in Homo sapiens is usually the norm. But
why is it the norm?
Why is it the norm? Because our evolution led up to that point.
Why do you think evolution led up to that point? Let's take it a step further.
It probably led up to that point because because you've got two partners. You've got two partners initially, and you're not necessarily always going to be in a group as such. I mean, I don't know. I don't know enough on the evolution, on the ins and outs of the evolution. I just know it is the evolutionary norm. I'm not even saying monogamy isn't the norm. I'm just questioning. All I'm questioning is it the only valid form of raising a child, and is it necessarily the healthiest? Because even though monogamy is the norm in Homo sapiens, at the same time we're a very communal species as well. We existed in a tribe and weren't necessarily living in houses separate from each other like we are now. We lived in communities, like multiple families living in, the same space for thousands, if not millions of years. So it's not as simple as
that's true, but we still had like our private spaces, like where
not necessarily, no.
There's
still parts of the world where there's about 9 families sharing a room the size of like a small house.
Okay, is it because of necessity? Is it because they have like that the conditions that they got to live in? I mean, is that the ideal way?
Yeah, I'm not saying it's. I'm not saying it's the ideal.
I've lived with people like under one roof. It was insane, So I don't know if that's ideal.
The Bible says, "A man shall leave his mom and dad, and he will marry his wife, and the two will become one soul."
Well, the Bible, I mean, I don't think we're going to convince him with any of that.
Well, that's not, it's not about whether the Bible's true. It's about culture. Culture has always kind of endorsed
Hey, I don't mean to be rude.
model
I don't
family.
mean to be rude, guys, but I have to sign off. I'm sorry, but it's getting too late over here for
Okay.
me. I gotta go.
Okay. I'm
But
probably going to sign off in a little bit too.
thanks, Leah, for coming, and thanks everybody for showing up. I enjoyed
It was a
myself.
good conversation.
I will
Yeah.
see you guys next time.
Yeah.
All right. Have a good night.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Have a good one.
But it's like this idea of, you know, moving out with your wife to have your own family structure, you know, away. That's kind of a cultural thing, I think. Like, I think that it works because it works. There's probably some sort of natural reason for it. Maybe it's an epigenetical thing, but either way, it works. We know.
It's not been the norm though, technically.
Right, but it works.
It's through most of human history. It wasn't just a man and a woman living in one space with a child. Like
look at the ape family now. Look at gorillas. They're social animals just like us, and they form communities and things of that nature. But you know, we know that it works for humans, whether we do that or not. But at the end of the day, the biggest norm that we have, the most data that we have, is based on today's culture, a more civilized culture where we have a two-parent home or whatever, one-parent home, two-parent home. Seems like the two-parent home works better than the one-parent home. As far as the three-parent home, from what I understand, there's not a whole lot of data on that to go by. But just thinking common sense wise, just my own, and I may be wrong. Absolutely, I may be wrong. But it just seems to me that marriage as an institution seems to be not guaranteed as it is. It's very complicated. Human relations are very complicated. How much more so does it become complicated in a polyamorous sort of marriage? Because it's not like running a company. We're not talking about like forming a company. A lot of people come together for a common cause. It's different.
I think it largely depends on the type of people who are in the relationship as well. It might actually be a net positive in some instances to have a third party chipping in. It might defuse arguments. It might bring a new perspective.
My only opinion is that they do the study, and it turns out that polyamorous relationships are no different in outcomes than monogamous relationships.
As I said, I would need to look through more of the studies.
Yeah, I'd be all for it. The whole point is, children being born, without any sort of stability is terrible. With just a single mother home is what Sophia's whole point was earlier. But
yeah.
We're way off the point. We're way off the subject.
I might have to dip off here too soon because I do have work pretty early in the morning.
As well, yeah, we've been on here for quite a while. So I'm going to go ahead and end the stream. But Quick Sticks, you have any last words, man?
It was a good conversation. I didn't mean to come across as aggressive or anything on this. It was
not at all.
To have a
It's always good
conversation.
to hear, a genuine questioning of something.
Yeah, we didn't mean
We all kind of ganged up on you a little bit, so
we just like to challenge each other, play devil's advocate and whatnot,
Yeah.
So, anyways, guys, I enjoyed it. You guys that may still be out there, thanks for joining. Special shout out to Quick Sticks again, to Jason, who is out in the audience, Solana Cortez. We're picking up a lot of views, and I appreciate that. Again, we've got links in the descriptions for my little fund drive that we're doing. Please participate if you can. At least click on the link and check us out. And like and subscribe if you like what we're doing. But other than that, I want to say sayonara. Thank you so much. I had a great conversation tonight. That was a lot of fun.
thanks for having me on.
Yes, ma'am. You too, Quick Sticks. You have a good one.
See you later.
All right.